Oh, what a day. What a life, guys. What a life. Ugh. What are we watching in chat? Question about the lawsuit, if that's okay. It seems like they are now admitting that they're sharing the video with Rose was before the statute, but they say, which is interesting, right? Because that entire initial complaint then would have lacked subject matter jurisdiction, huh? With Rose before the statute, but say that there was a separate sharing event that was after the statute. Does that mean that they would only be able to get compensation for damages occurred from the second sharing since the first sharing did not break the statute? That is how that would work, number one. But number two, the big damages that they're talking about have to do with the video being published on a website, and they haven't seemed to invoke anybody or accuse anybody as part of this lawsuit of doing that. So kind of weird. Kind of weird. That's not even remotely the weirdest thing, though. I hope I can talk about all this sometime soon. Holy fuck. It's actually so unhinged. Off the hinges. Did you see the new Israel plan? Occupying Gaza and in the south? Based. Nice. Take it over again. River summary, what the fuck happened with the drug stuff? I'm not sure because this person, it seems like they're very mentally not, they're having issues. And I don't know if there's, if for me to litigate any of that stuff publicly, it's just going to be a huge shit show for that person. And I don't know if it's even worth it right now. I'm not even thinking about that. Just waiting for this current thing to be done. Did you see that Bill Ackman is okay with Harvard losing its tax exempt status? I didn't, but that's not surprising. Today's connection is going to piss you off. Is it now? Okay. What do we got? Torpedo, bat, coast, level, cape, baton, plateau, hoagie, settle, cruise, cigar, castle, float, flatten, fang, and drift. Bro, we're fucking, anybody else fucking cruising? Anybody else coasting? Anybody else drifting or floating? I know I am. In a boat. Boom, we're gliding. Okay, we need things to plateau, okay? We need to wait for things to settle down. They gotta flatten out. They need to level. You know what I mean? You know those things that, oh, hold on. Things associated with creepy bad guys. Capes, cigars, castles, and bats. Fuck! Oh no. Okay, fang, hoagie, baton, and torpedo. Oh my god, I'm seeing stuff that's got stuff shoved inside of it. Hoagie, torpedo, cigar, and hoagie, torpedo. Okay, so let's move this. Yeah, boom, associated with Count Dracula. Okay, creepy dudes. And then this is something I don't even know. It's shaped like a cylinder. Things that are long and cylindrical based. You thought I couldn't figure this out? How does he do it? Gets categories right for the wrong reasons? Wait, what did I get right for the wrong reason? I'm just a fucking genius, you fucking moron. I mean, Count Dracula is creepy. What do you mean? Yeah, also, aren't bats long and cylindrical? I know they are when I put my dick in them. Okay. Sorry. Somebody said that they had 839 guys. Come on, let's go up again. We can do it. We can do it, guys. 1 million by the end of the year. Come on, we can do it. Decoding the gurus. Gary. They decoded him. Fuck. Wait, where is it at? I'm so curious how fucking mad their audience was. Captivate.fm. Wait, have they is it public yet or? No, don't say that. I'm done streaming today, if that's true. Don't. No shot. No shot. Don't make me Google that. Don't. I'm gonna Google it. It's not real. Hold on. It's not real. Oh, no. Fuck you. Oh, no. Financial details of the settlement weren't revealed on Friday. They paid her money for wrongful death for Ashley Babbitt's family. They were asking for 30 million. No shot did they pay it out. The full 30 million, right? Hassan slop. I love getting sloppy from Hassan. Yes.
I promise you. Okay.
Okay. What do you promise?
Also, don't say he's a kid. Destiny's gonna DM him. No, Destiny's already DMing him. Probably why. That was probably the first inclination that he's a kid.
How can he talk about pedophiles right now when there's an ongoing genocide? What a gross man.
For a lot of people. At least like, you know, around 18, you know what I mean? DMing him for age play.
Why would you have to DM a minor for age play? They're already they're already a kid. What? That doesn't even make sense.
Eat actually showed Lolly on his stream too. Where are you guys finding this shit? Where are you finding this shit? How are you finding this shit?
I like how Hassan pretends he doesn't read all the same shit. Okay, I don't care. Oh man, was your audience mad about this? Holy fuck.
Hello and welcome to Decoding the Gurus, the
Hello.
podcast where an anthropologist and a psychologist listen to the greatest minds the world has to offer, and we try to understand what they're talking about. I'm Matt Brown, the psychologist from Australia. With me is Chris Kavanagh, the anthropologist from Japan, formerly Northern Ireland. And we're going to decode a potential guru today. Hey, Chris.
Oh,
That's always what we do, Matt. That's nothing new. That's what we exist to do. We service the discourse by
the discourse.
producing a podcast where
Think of
we
the discourse,
decode
guys.
people who may or may not fit the secular guru template. Is that not what we're here for?
That's what we're here for. That's what we signed up for.
That's right.
Yeah, we do other things. We well, actually we don't. We we monitor the gurus we've already decoded in the discourse.
That sound just doesn't sound great. But I did see, Matt, that someone on our Patreon, they were bored and they used a analytical tool for videos to quantify the amount of movement in it, and they compared my amount of movement with your amount of movement for some random segment of video, and I believe the analytics proved that you move 75% more than me, or was something like that. It was a ridiculous amount more. So
Oh.
quantify.
Do you ever get mad listening to Europeans talk? I just hear them talking. I'm like, God.
I
Viable
see.
proof now, Matt,
I
that you
see.
cannot sit still.
I see. Okay, so it's been quantified.
Yeah, that's
well-
it. You can't
what?
beat numbers.
I'm sorry, Chris. I add to this people who are making these metrics. I plead guilty. I'm sorry. I move
move.
sometimes. That's the crime I'm guilty of. I just want to apologize to you, the listeners, everyone,
That's all right.
for being human. For being
Matt is
human.
Australian? Yeah. European. What do you want to call him? Asian? Dipshit?
No other.
Well, while we're on the subject, Matt, now you remember there was
Here
a saga.
I squeak, Chris. I could do no other.
Yeah. Well, on that subject, Matt. Yes, that's what I was going to raise. So, the listeners had an intervention. Old Squeaky was put out to pasture, taken to the back woodshed, and put down. But increasingly, people have noticed. I've noticed, Matt, that Old Squeaky has been making his way back in. And your lovely new chair, the fantastic chair that you bought to stop things from squeaking, it's completely gone. The chair you're sitting in now is not Old Squeaky, nor is it the new chair. It's a third unknown chair.
Yeah. Look, you will not silence Squeaky. You
I-
cannot do it. You cannot. He's too comfortable. He's too comfortable. He moves in exactly the same. He's got one crime. He's not perfect. He does squeak. But yes, I shuffle chairs. I change chairs. I don't know what happened to the chair that I bought. The extremely expensive chair that doesn't squeak but has no other things to commend it. So I think one of the children have taken it, which is probably for the best.
Okay, all right. Well, that just speaks to their high level of taste. But as long as you have this kind of third variable chair, that's all right. It seems to be doing the job. Now, Matt, this week we are not in right-wing topia guru space. We have been there recently, right, with Michael Schellenberger, Chris Langan, people like that. But
Okay.
this week we're venturing into lefty waters, in particular, waters that will inevitably lead to very passionate feedback, I predict, amongst Reddit and on Patreon and whatnot. It already has when we announced we're doing it, because we're covering Gary's economics, Gary Stevenson.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, we people don't like it when we do left-wing gurus. But
some people don't like it. Some people do like it. So that's it. I think the general criteria is: are you a leftist? Then you might not enjoy it when we cover left-wing people. That seems to
True.
be the determining factor. Because if you look at the people that we cover, right, whenever we cover Yuval Noah Harari or someone like that, we don't really get very strong feedback. Or people say, "Don't be so mean to Yuval," right? Nobody cares. Nobody really cares. But Noam Chomsky, Naomi Klein, Zizek, right? There's a connecting tissue to the people that often generate the most passionate response.
who was
and,
the first person, the anti-racist lady? What was her name again?
Robert
God.
D'Angelo.
Robert DiAngelo. I think she was the first
Oh, she's the
Left
really crazy
person
one.
that we covered.
But she didn't generate that much feedback though, because
think.
at that time, I feel
Wasn't
like
Robert D'Angelo, wasn't she the lady who was like, she was the one who was like, you can murder white people and it's okay or something, or black people. He was a crazy, I think we read a speech he gave. It was an insane speech. It was an insane speech at some
she was
college
already
university.
at that
She was like a
stage
professor.
kind of beat up by everyone.
Well, that's what I was going to say. We expected some blowback, but I think she'd already jumped the shark in terms of going a little bit too far and getting up even progressive people's noses. So by the time we covered her, it was okay. You were allowed to criticize her. As for Gary, well, and for some of the others, we're ahead of the curve, Chris. Can be a little bit ahead of the curve. Sometimes people come around later on. We'll see.
Well, let's see, Matt. Don't you jump the shark or what is it? Jump the horse? I don't know. Like, who says that we will have anything critical to say about Gary? Maybe we'll agree with everything that he's saying. But yes, in any case, it is fair to say that he's rather popular at the minute. I've seen him crop up on various shows. He's hot right now. That's what the kids would say, right? And what he is, for those people who aren't familiar, is that he has a YouTube channel called Gary's Economics. He also has a popular trade book, which came out last year called The Trading Game with Penguin Books, okay? And that book documents his time as a FX trader or some variety of foreign exchange trader in the city, in London, right? He was, in the beating heart of the financial district. And he had a career, he made a whole bunch of money, and then he left it. And now he's kind of talking about, wealth inequality, rich people hoarding money and the problems it causes and whatnot. So it's a little bit like a whistleblower. But another important feature is that, as Gary likes to highlight, he is from a working class background, right? And he very much, his presentation is highlighting that. He makes his videos in a...
Also, all of the people around him are literally like poor and starving to death and are homeless, and he's got millions and millions of dollars, but for some reason he never shares any of his wealth.
kitchen with like Jaffa cakes, wearing a hoodie, and speaks with a distinctive London twang, which you'll hear in the clips. I recognize this from living in London. You may not know it, Matt, but I myself am someone with a non-standard accent in the UK. So, an outsider in elitist institutions, I understand. Maybe I understand better than most, Matt, this presentation, okay?
Well, I've been listening to Gary's Economics for a while now. I listened to a few episodes long before we even had any thought of covering him in Decoding the Gurus. It was recommended to me by a colleague who likes the cut of his jib, or did. And I also noticed the accent, Chris. I know my English accents.
Okay.
And look, I think it's fair to say, as it says on the tin, Gary's Economics, he is kind of explaining economics to the layperson, explaining how it works. But it's fair to say the general theme is that it's kind of rigged against you, rigged against the little guy.
If I want to send one message, it is that the game is set up in a way that you are being robbed of your wealth, and there's very little you can do as an individual to stop that.
What?
But no matter how much they rob you of your wealth, they can't rob you of your dignity.
Oh.
And it's not your fault that you live increasingly in poverty. The game is being set up such that the majority of this country increasingly will live in poverty.
Okay.
But you can realise that
And
that's
then
not
what?
fair on you as an individual. That is the result of a rotten system. It is the result of a rotten system. And
Okay.
I think people can deal with poverty. I know poverty is not easy, but I grew up in poverty and it was hard. But what affected me in many ways more than the poverty was the judgment. So don't judge yourself harshly and don't judge other people harshly because it's a system that's broken.
I already judged him.
You should be proud of the work that you do, and you should be proud of what you do to support yourself and to support your family and support the people around you. Because I think once we manage to shake off this judgment and this idea that it's our fault, then we can start being proud of ourselves and each other and seeing the game for what it really is, which is a broken game that we have to fix together.
Damn.
And
That's
the theme is
crazy.
that the inexorable trends of the system will lead to the rich getting richer and the rest of us struggling.
Yes, that's right. And the kind of aesthetic of it, if you look at his little profile picture on YouTube, he's got like a beanie on with like fingerless gloves. He looks like a kind of modern day vegan, right? Like, kind of man of the street, telling you like it is. And these elite fat cats, he went into the Dragon's Den
And
and
he
he played the
won.
game better than the ones that were born with a silver spoon in their mouth. And he's going to tell you the things that they don't want you to know. That's a little bit the kind
Wow.
of framing of things,
Okay.
right? So the titles of popular videos that I see: what does Elon Musk want? How to get rich? The week Trump nearly crashed the world economy. Why aren't we all getting rich from compound interest? Why Labour and Trump will both feel the future of house prices? This kind of thing. So it's like political and cultural commentary, but with an economic spin to it. Now, what we looked at were a couple of sources. One was, why is inequality ignored? This is part of a Understand the Economy series, part 3, and this is a theme that he touches on quite a lot. So this seemed worth covering as illustrative of the kind of output. I also clipped from an interview he did with Novara Media. Everything they tell you about the economy is wrong. Aaron Bastani meets Gary's Economics, right? And lastly, his last video, signing off how close are we to winning higher taxes on the rich, right? So he's taking a bit of a hiatus, so he made a little video to say, where are we with the channel? What's going on? So that's the sources I've mainly clipped from, and a couple of other things, right?
I don't think we're going to have much of a problem with the idea that the content...
Wait. Quick main break.
Rate streamer less than 3. Rate streamer less than...
we're covering isn't representative because I've listened to a bunch of episodes, and I think it's fair to say the same messages, the same points tend to come up repeatedly. Indeed, the same references to his own abilities and background, they tend to get repeated as well. So yeah, I think we've got no trouble with the representation of the content.
Okay, that's right. And just to note, Matt, since you mentioned that, I think it's worth probably telling people I didn't have to do this. So it's not something I've got to do all the time. All right. But I listened to the entire audiobook of the Trading Game. So I inevitably have
Oh my
been
God.
colored for that, for good and bad, in terms of, background knowledge. But I could tell you Gary's background quite well from that book, is that he presents it as that he came from a very working class background in Ilford. And when I say working class, it includes things that he didn't have a shower, he had to connect the hose pipe to make the shower work, didn't have a table to study on, had to use a plank of wood.
No,
right?
table.
There are issues of this which seem to be somewhat self-apologizing because, I'm not from a stunningly well-off background in Belfast, and I found few people that I knew in my network that did not have access to tables. But nevertheless, set that aside. But then he basically is very good at maths and this kind of thing, and then gets into LSE, this prestigious, economic elite university. And there he's also top of the class in certain respects, doing maths fantastically, and he wins.
Archer, I didn't start liking green beans until I was like 25 plus. Hello, fellow white person. I also didn't know that vegetables were edible until I escaped my white family. True.
This game, this kind of trading game organized by Citibank. He beats everybody in the game and then gets offered a job as a trader. And then the book is detailing his life as a trader and how he becomes super successful, a millionaire, and then eventually ends up leaving the bank, getting in a war with the bank about getting a payout and whatnot. And at the end, he's leaving the bank to go work for a charity, having kind of beat the system in a way. Not in general, just for himself, right? So that's the kind of tale that it weaves.
Yeah, and in his podcast material.
Don't drag white people just because your parents can't cook? What are you talking about, bro? If you've ever heard my mom speak about black people, whoo, she can cook. Just kidding.
He makes a bunch of points, but there are two ones that are recurrent that at least came up an awful lot in all of the ones that I listened to. One of them is advocating for wealth tax on the rich, so an annual 1% wealth tax on people that have, and the threshold varies, but he's mentioned £10 million and £20 million, I think, as the wealth threshold to trigger that wealth tax. So that's one thing he advocates for. The second thing he tends to focus on is house prices and housing affordability. And he's pretty consistent in blaming housing affordability on the very rich,
Good.
buying up all the assets,
Fucking
and driving up
rich.
the cost of assets. So there might be other ones that you've noticed, Chris, but those are the two big ones that I recall.
Yeah. I just remembered as well, Matt, that there was one thing I wanted to say before we started, because I think this is important to flash up at the beginning, right? So if you take Gary's overall message to be wealth inequality is bad, we should try to make the ultra rich pay more taxes, right? Give them less ways to avoid ferreting their tax off the tax havens or putting it into properties or whatever the case might be. Closing loopholes. I think there are very few people, especially of the left-wing persuasion, who will have any issue with that general premise. Right? I certainly don't. Inequality is a problem, completely agree. And the wealthy finding ways to stop them avoiding
It's based.
engaging in tax evasion, great. I'm totally on board with that. So this is one thing that I want to mention. It's
Just kidding. My bad.
people often seem to make this mistake of assuming that if someone is talking about a genuine issue and they are saying this is a problem, right? It could be addiction, it could be gambling, it could be political polarization, whatever it is, that if you look critically at them or you have things to say, that means you're dismissing that the problem they're discussing is real and you're trying
am.
to attack that idea.
I
And
am.
just to be clear, no, those two things are separate. The problem can be very real, even the solution can be correct or viable or whatnot. But that does not mean that the person doing it, that if you're critical of them, that therefore you are, attacking that basic idea. And that's important because people like Russell Brand in the past, various other people, Brett Weinstein does it, but all of our gurus essentially try to wrap themselves in this cloak that they are doing things for, very good motives. They're talking about important issues. And I think people get it with Russell Brand, for example, because he's an extreme example. But Russell Brand, he is also talking about, wealth inequality or addiction or whatever. But if you're critical of Russell Brand, it doesn't mean that you are dismissing that there's anything to be talked about with corruption or wealth inequality or so on. Okay, I just want to flag that up.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I could
yeah,
put it
yeah.
in slightly different terms, actually. So first of all, just to sign on to kind of putting your prize or, biases on the table, I'm the same as you. I think the distribution of wealth is much too skewed at the moment. I think that the,
Cringe.
wages have been stagnating for decades relative
Based.
to other forms of income. And that is a serious problem. So I'm in favor of reducing wealth inequality across the board. I'd probably go further than Gary, actually, because he tends to focus on the top 1%. And I think actually you can look at the distribution and the curves and you'll see that there's an awful lot of wealth
Untaxed
inequality where
people.
the meaty part of it is actually in the top 10 or 15%.
Yeah,
not just- so it's
hell
easy to pick
yeah,
to
get
sort of
those
keep on a very
middle
small outgroup,
classers.
and nobody
A
likes
plus.
billionaires. Come on, at least of all us, right? But actually, it's a bit more uncomfortable when you start talking about more
The upper
more-
middle class or
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Now, the other thing too is housing affordability. I also think is a major problem. Again, almost everyone agrees with this, right? These are normal things. So but that is not to say that the arguments for the diagnosis of the problem, as in what's causing it, or the arguments in favor of certain
Rashid
actions
Khalidi
to
worth
remedy
reading?
the problem, are necessarily
strong
good.
opinion. I don't think
about
I've read
students
much or
writing
anything
essays
by
saying
him,
that
so-
democracy is good.
but I don't think I've heard
They could
anything
still write a
unhinged
very,
about
very
him,
bad
so-
essay, putting a bunch of bad arguments to support that thesis. So yeah, it's just an important distinction for people to wrap their heads around.
Yeah, two separate things, but often not. It appears, and in general, the last thing I'll say is that I'm not an economist, Matt. I don't play one on TV. I don't claim to have much knowledge of economics. I do, however, know stuff about like guru rhetoric and academia and discrimination towards people with non-standard accents and this kind of thing, elitism in academia. So that stuff I can speak to, but the specific economic stuff I'll leave more to you or other people because you're someone with an interest in those topics, right?
Yeah, I have an amateur's interest in economics, just like I have an amateur's interest in history. And we're not talking extremely technical arguments here, as we'll see.
Let's see.
We'll see.
Let's see.
Let's go.
Okay. Well, all right. So first clip. This is a refrain that you hear a lot in Gary's content, and it's about economists and what they don't talk about.
Uh-oh.
What they're missing.
What do they miss?
Okay, so the first reason economists don't talk about inequality is because of the way economics is taught at universities. So for those who don't know, I studied maths and economics at the London School of Economics for 3 years for my undergrad, and then I did a 2-year master's in economics at Oxford. So I spent
Damn.
5 years at elite economics departments learning economics. And I think it's important to understand the way that economics is taught at universities nowadays. So the first thing to say is, and I think this will surprise a lot of people, in economics departments, we don't talk about the housing crisis. We don't talk about why housing is unaffordable. We don't talk about falling living standards. We don't talk about why wages are falling, why it's hard to get a good job.
You just don't
why
talk about
businesses are
anything in
expensive,
economics, I guess.
Why things like
Okay.
energy and food are increasingly expensive. These kind of big economic problems of our time are basically not discussed at university.
So he's been to the elite school. of the
LSE and Oxford.
Yep. And he's gotten very good grades there, as he's mentioned many times. And,
Very good grades.
They never ever talk about inequality, housing affordability, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So just to say, Matt, this surprised me when I heard this claim because although I'm not an economist, right, I did go to a university that had people studying economics, SOAS, where that was topics that were covered on economics courses. And amongst the Patreon responses, we had some people that have studied economics in different institutions, and they were quick to point out that they also had studied, these topics. And just doing a quick cursory look around economics courses, you can find these kind of topics being covered. So his claim is quite a broad one, right? It's saying that economists aren't interested, essentially they're not interested in things like inequality, housing crisis, all these kind of, the things that actually matter to people in their lives. So that's quite a claim to make.
Well,
But-
it is a surprising claim because the London School of Economics has a Centre for the Analysis of Social Exclusion, and it also has the International Inequalities Institute. So it has a couple of research institutes specifically dedicated to
kinda
that
crazy.
topic. And again, you can do a little bit of a look around, like I did, and find that not only is there whole subdisciplines of economics that are specifically focused on inequality, both within nations and across nations and all kinds of stuff, but some of the very influential, like paradigm-shifting economists who focus on inequality are actually at the LSE. So now, that doesn't mean, of course, that an undergraduate who's doing a thing that may probably with a focus on trading, foreign exchange markets and things like that. They might not take those units, but it is a sweeping claim that he's making, and that is not true.
If you think we're, reading too much into an offhand comment, he goes on. So what economists don't care about inequality, housing crisis. What kind of thing are they doing at university then?
So what do we do at university? The main thing is we do maths. So economics nowadays is a very, very heavily mathematized subject. If you don't have a very good maths A-level, you basically can't even get into university to do it. And then when you get into the university, it's just very, very, very heavily mathematical. And once you go into postgrad especially, it's extremely phenomenally mathematical. And
Wow.
it's not easy maths. You're doing kind of a lot of algebra, a lot of simultaneous equations, but basically it's a maths subject at this point. And it's important to say that the maths is not easy. So I had a maths and economics undergrad, and I was very good at maths as a kid. But then when I went to do my postgrad at Oxford, even though I was very good at maths, I found maths quite difficult. And if you want to succeed, if you want to get good grades, you really, really have to spend a lot of time memorizing the maths, basically.
If we're being charitable, when he said algebra, he meant like linear algebra, maybe. I'm trying to be.
You have to do a lot of maths, and it's very, very tricky maths. Okay, there's a lot of maths there at the postgrad level, more advanced maths. I do know that this is often what economists like to say as well about like the level of their mathematical competence. But in any case, he is endorsing the internal claim of the economics discipline, which is, we do maths and modeling in a better way than most of the other social sciences. Not in a better way, in like a more advanced way. But obviously there's a critique in it, which is that he's pointing out that, they might be getting a bit caught up in their models, right? And he'll spell this out in more detail in the next clip.
And the context for this maths is they basically build a model, like a model economy, and everything affects everything else. So if we cut the interest rate a bit, what does that do to GDP, for example? Or if people suddenly start spending less money, trying to save more, what does that do to inflation? This kind of thing. If the government suddenly raises taxes, how does that affect the economy? And you build this kind of mathematical model. It's like a toy model, like a kind of game in a way. We raise this a little bit, that falls, this thing rises. And that's the kind of model that is basically used in modern economics. But of course, when you build a model, you can't include absolutely everything that exists in the economy. You have to make some simplifications. Some things will be included, some things will not be included. And the models which we study at universities nowadays, one of the big simplifications is that there is no inequality in the model. In fact, it's more than just that there is no inequality in the model. There is only one person in the model. So these models are what they call representative agent models. So rather than looking at 6 or 7 billion people in the world, or like 66 million people in the UK, or 300 million people in the US, they say, to make the model simpler, we are just going to look at one representative person, so the average person in the whole economy. So all you care about is averages, right? You're just looking at one average person. And of course, if we change the distribution, if I take some wealth from you and give it to Bill Gates, or if I take some wealth from Rishi Sunak and give it to you, that changes the distribution, but it doesn't change the average. So basically, once you build this model, which only looks at the representative agent, which is the average, which is the aggregate, it's not only that there is no inequality in the model, there is not even any possibility for inequality in the model. These are models of averages, these are models of aggregates.
Well, once again, Chris, it's very easy to...
Did your TikTok get hacked? Yeah, I don't know how. Somebody did a password reset request like 50 times, and I kept getting the code, and then eventually it was like, oh, you've logged in from your account. Like, okay. So I don't know if there's some weird Russian zero day to get into TikTok accounts, but I never use it anyway, so I don't care.
Fact check
But whatever Arabic dude has it, good luck.
this. Look, of course, there's a huge variety of models that get used in economics, just like in any discipline. You might have...
No. There's only one type, Matt. For judging from this sounds very bad. This sounds like a big problem. If economists are only...
How is it that nobody has figured this problem out yet? That Gary's economics is so astutely divined about the entire world of economics. It's very disappointing.
only using a model that can only have a single agent in it, and they only care about averages, so they can't even look at interactions, right? This is what the hell are you talking about? This is a huge problem for the discipline.
Now, like, I know that there are models that don't involve agents at all, right? That just are about interest rates and, you know, macroeconomic things, right? So that could be true. There might be some simplified ones that involve homogeneity, and I think he's referring to representative agent models. This is based on this is my Googling and stuff. So these can be useful for certain kinds of things, but he's ignoring the fact that there are heterogeneous agent models, there are microeconomic models, and there are, you know, all kinds of complex models that are used.
What? This is shocking. Are you telling me there's overlapping generations models that can study intergenerational transfers and wealth accumulation, or that there's human capital and skill-based models that look at skill-based technological change?
And you said you weren't confident with the economics, Chris. Look at you. You sound like you know so much.
Post-Keynesian and Calakian models, Goodwin cycles back. The people concerned about this. The ones that I knew about before I went down this rabbit hole of looking at all these different models was behavioral economics, right? That whole field, to my understanding, was challenging what economists often said was like beating up a straw man that nobody agrees with, the like Homo economicus rational agent model, right? Where people are just profit maximizing machines, because what behavioral economics tends to show is like people are irrational. They do things like they engage in costly punishment, giving themselves like a economic disadvantage to punish people that aren't behaving well and whatnot. And but the thing is, when I looked at this, it wasn't hard to find like tons of information about models which are very different than what he talks about, and which explicitly do model inequality and are like responses to the limitations. And they're not like super advanced models that nobody talks about.
No,
they're really common.
Well, even without Googling it, I straight away smelt a rat, because I knew that they do modeling on the effects of particular kinds of tax adjustments, right? Because all tax is stratified, right? There's incremental tax brackets and things like that. There are things like consumption taxes, which apply to everyone equally, but actually turn out to be regressive taxes because poorer people spend more of their income on consumption, right? So the very basic stuff, like which comes up every election cycle in Australia, where they're always fiddling with the various taxes. Both parties are proposing different options. They absolutely do income-based heterogeneous modeling to take into account the differential patterns of saving and spending and all kinds of stuff across the spectrum of income and wealth. So it is just obviously the case that they do. And
there's an entire, there's also a set of economists that are collected. I mean, there's Marxist economists and so on as well, right? But there are also a group of economists who tend to be very critical of the kind of neoliberal, market economic perspective. And they go by the title heterodox, right? It's kind of funny because, heterodox podcasters, but the heterodox economists, there's a lot of them. And it also includes figures that I'd come across a long time ago, right? Joseph Stiglitz, the guy that used to be World Bank man, right? He is in that category. So is Thomas Piketty, right? There's a huge amount of them that are critical of models that don't include various things, or critical of various interventions that are favored in certain economic schools. So it's just that presentation that there aren't, there isn't debate and division in the field, when like economics to me is just a field like anyone. There's tons of debates.
Well, one of the things that makes our ears prick up as decoders is when a figure is making a sweeping claim about academic or institutional orthodoxy, that they're all basically the same, that they don't care at all about X, right? And they're all fixated on Y. It's something we hear a lot. And I think that is what Gary is doing there. And one of my particular interests is actually modern monetary theory, which is one of those sort of heterodox, not quite mainstream alternative views about things. And it absolutely does focus on the effects of macroeconomic policy on heterogeneous groups, particularly labor. And like these people exist. Like it is a diverse field with a lot of different perspectives.
Yeah, so there's a different version of this critique, which says there's a mainstream academic orthodoxy in economics, which relies too much on representative agent modeling, and this is drummed into undergraduates like more strongly than alternative models. Like that's a different critique, right? And that's one that you could say, all right, that's a reason, but that is not what this level of rhetoric sounds like. What this sounds like is they are brainwashing you into this model, and they don't even want to address those issues, right? And again, I've got another clip that will highlight the degree to which this is being presented as the kind of complicity of the economics field in this endeavor.
Which is why when modern economists who've been to these elite universities think about the economy, they tend to think about them in terms of averages or aggregates, so that they're obsessed with the big aggregate measurements of the economy. For example, GDP is of course the classic one, unemployment, inflation, central bank interest rates, level of government spending, level of government taxation. These are things which you can measure on an aggregate economy.
Yeah.
But they're nothing to do with how is one person effective versus another person.
Yeah.
As soon as you take a model and you make it representative agent, a model of the average person, this model can't say anything about distribution, it can't say anything about this group of people is winning, this group of people is losing. We can't say anything like that in these models. So I think this is really interesting, right? Because if you want to be...
Do you feel like you respect or at least appreciate these guys' opinions more than other people that speak in these environments? What, for the Decoding the Gurus guy? I think I respect them quite a bit. I don't think I've ever heard them say anything crazy or stupid or totally off on somebody.
Like an influential economist in the world of policy or academia, you are going to have a PhD, right? So you're going to have 3 years undergrad, 1 year, I did 2 years master. You're going to be doing a PhD for like 3, 4, 5 years. In the US, a PhD is like 7 years. You're going to have to do like some postdoc work, and then you're going to, if you're lucky, become a junior professor. So like, by the time you reach a point that you are like influential in economic policy terms, you've been studying these models for like 15 years, like something like that. And the fact that these models don't include any distribution, don't include any inequality, that doesn't explicitly say we don't think inequality is important. But what does it do to a person who has devoted most of their life to the study of economics? That study has consisted of 10, 15 years of very difficult mathematical analysis, mathematical manipulation, of very difficult, very complicated mathematical models with no inequality in them.
That's
So
crazy.
Again, just want to repeat, those ultra-homogeneous representative agent models are absolutely just a subclass of economic models. The second point too, of course, is that you can have measures, aggregate measures, like the Gini coefficient, right, of income inequality or wealth inequality, which describe the degree of inequality as a whole. Just like the unemployment rate is of interest to people who care about equality. And I think it is a real furphy to imply that because you are studying something in the aggregate, then you don't care about inequality. And also that it's not telling you anything about the individuals involved. In fact, that made me think, Chris, of an old episode that we did on the health influences. They were talking about gut health and biomes and things like that. And they were telling us that science, medical science, it just has the same treatment for everyone, right? Yes, it does. They do all of this science and they have all their experiments and stuff. But all it's telling us is about people in general. Really, it's not telling us anything about you personally and your own personal problems. And that's exactly the same argument he's making here.
Yeah, it's Dr. K, right? Dr. K said, clinical trials are all about finding out things
Is
that
the
work for a
Z-Talk happening?
population,
I
but they
think on
don't
Wednesday it's
apply
scheduled for.
to necessarily you as an individual.
There's a lot of like individuality that enters medicine. The funny thing is that our system of medicine doesn't sort of factor that in. We don't really factor in individuality in terms of our clinical trials and the gold standard of our information. So Ayurveda is fundamentally different because Ayurveda like treats a person. It presumes that all human beings are different, and that in order to like help someone, you have to understand like individually how they function. So if you look at our Western system of medicine, the idea is that a disease process is independent of an individual and has a treatment. So the whole point of an RCT is let's remove all of the individuality, all of the specificity from an individual patient, because if we take an individual patient, we treat cholesterol in this individual patient, we have no idea how that's going to apply to the other 9,000 people we treat because this person is an individual. So let's remove individuality from the equation. Let's look at high blood pressure, and let's try to isolate this disease process. Then we run into a problem in Western medicine because you can isolate this disease process in a laboratory, but the moment that you have a real person in front of you, things get complicated.
Also, Gwyneth Paltrow in the interview. I think it happens a lot in the health influencer space, and it's the kind of thing that sounds good, right? It's like people hate vaccines because it's the one size fits all. Joe Rogan's got his bloody bespoke, tailored treatments that's just for him. That's the kind of thing that's quite appealing, right? That this broad, sweeping discipline doesn't care about people as individuals.
Yeah, but again, we're gonna, and this is the contradiction that comes up because there are people, for example, Matt, like criticize the Gini coefficient as like, not capturing all elements of inequality, which is true, right? But there is also the case that when we get into it a bit later, Gary's going to be suggesting like a wealth tax, right? Targeted at a specific band. But that's a general aggregate thing, right? It's not like each individual person is treated as like you would be setting up a tax that applies to people that fit into this category. So like, it's like kind of having your cake and eating it. And all of this rests on the
Did you listen to the 4-hour debate over the distinction of venue and territorial jurisdiction between Rob and Pisco? Absolutely not. We listened to a decent chunk of it, but it was way too autistic.
like we've highlighted, that if you do a PhD in economics, you're not allowed to focus on inequality. You're not allowed to do modeling that has anything to say about distribution of wealth and inequality. And it's just so wrong. Like, you can very easily find a whole bunch of seminars, a whole bunch of like workshops, conferences, publications, articles, specifically talking about this, including from elite institutions and whatnot. And you can argue about, well, are they achieving what they set out? They talk about this a lot and this kind of thing. But he's saying here they don't even talk about it. Like they're not able to cover it because it's not in their models.
Well, there is a Journal of Public Economics published by Elsevier, the Journal of Economic. I'm going to say it my way, as always. The Journal,
non-standard dialects.
The Journal of Economic Inequality, published by Springer. Did I pronounce Springer right? Is that right? Springer.
Yes, good job.
Springer. Journal of Development Economics, Journal of Labor Economics. Now, if it was true that economists don't study, you're not allowed to study it, I've been brainwashed from the beginning, never to even think of inequality. I presume these journals are struggling to find papers to publish.
Well, also, what about all the economics professors at SOAS? Because they seem to spend quite a lot of time that, like, SOAS is a very lefty university, right? So they are generally the dominant economics perspective there is more towards the heterodox side. So once again, it's about differentiating claims. The way he frames it is extremely sweeping. It does apply to all economists everywhere. Maybe his claim is about the LSE specifically. Maybe our friend Liam Bright, he's in the philosophy department, admittedly. He's clearly a communist and he said LSE. But putting him aside, maybe it's true that the LSE does have this kind of hyper-liberal, money-making attitude, because people like Gary, who were very keen to become traders, would tend to study there. Absolutely. So I went to university in London. I'll mention this. So the reputation of LSE, in particular, you can study lots of things at LSE. You don't have to study economics. You can go to study philosophy with Liam, and he's probably not going to make you do agent-based representational models or whatever, right? But the economics department there is broadly seen as like being associated with the city and with, a kind of more like conventional mainstream economics thing. Now, as you pointed out, Matt, there's plenty of people in the economics department that won't fit that stereotype, right? But I knew, as somebody in University of London, that the LSE economics students were known that they would, sometimes wear suits to lectures or whatever. So yes, the LSE has a particular reputation for people that are very fixated on money. So it wouldn't surprise me if that was more common in LSE and there was more of an emphasis on that. But that's a very different claim than all of economics across the UK or all of economics across the world, the entire discipline of economics, right? The LSE undergraduate syllabus is not the economics field, full stop.
And we will see maybe in further clips, but certainly in the material that I heard, that this framing that economists don't understand how the economy really works because they're actually not as good at predicting the future and trading as real practitioners like Gary was, that they've got a blind spot when it comes to inequality and through their privilege, basically, don't care about poor people. It is a framing which is designed to aggrandize Gary himself as being the one understander you can trust.
Well, that's going to be a recurrent theme. But let me play another clip, which is like building on the kind of themes that we've been talking about.
Like, I think this is a very effective way to subconsciously convince, almost subconsciously brainwash a person into believing that inequality doesn't matter. So you never come out and explicitly say, like, inequality doesn't matter. But you say, like, here's a really, really complicated game. Here's a really, really complicated mathematical model that you're going to have to spend 15, 20 years of your life understanding in absolute fine detail. And you never even explicitly mention it, but the model doesn't have inequality in it. Doesn't have any distribution, doesn't have any space for that. So imagine you're that kid, you went in 18 years old, and then you spent 15 years of your life paying, locked in libraries, doing really difficult maths.
Waste of money education.
Non-equality. And then, first of all, whenever you think about what's wrong with the economy, you're going to go back to the stuff you studied, right? And you're going to be like, maybe the problem is the interest rate is too high, or government spending is too low, or government taxation is too high. You're going to focus on these things that were in the model. You spent 20 years studying that model. Of course, you're going to want to provide answers that are from the model that you told. The model that you've been spending 20 years of your life studying. But if somebody comes to you and says, hey, maybe the problem is inequality, maybe the problem is distribution, how's that going to affect you emotionally? What's your emotional response to that going to be? I think you're going to get like a gut instinct, which is like, no, of course it's not. It's not that. Because if it was that, why the fuck have I spent 20 years studying something that's not even in the model? And also, you kind of have a bit of professional skin in this game, right? Because if this person is right with what they're saying, that the reason the economy gets worse and worse is because of growing inequality, then you have spent 20 years of your life studying something that has nothing to say about the biggest economic issue of our time.
I guess that brainwashing didn't work on Thomas Piketty, who wrote a couple of books about capital and is a very famous modern advocate, an economist. He survived the brainwashing, Chris, and he's quite a famous advocate for taxing wealth.
But Matt, can we not? So I agree, of course, but let me play devil's advocate here. Isn't Thomas Piketty an outlier? Wasn't he someone that raised a number of critiques about the dominant narratives in the field, and that's why he got attention for his book?
Maybe. I think he's not the only one. I think it's a pretty common thing. Like economists, I think, are always talking about taxation, and progressive taxation is standard. Wealth taxes exist. I think that they're pretty well studied. That's the point I'm making.
Well, you know, the point that comes up here that like I think people should notice in our audience is when you present that like, so first of all, he's doing the Lex thing of like, if some guy comes up and says inequality, you're gonna like disagree with that guy. That guy is Gary, right? That guy is Gary. So Gary is saying when there's some renegade like him who's coming up breaking all your fancy models with his insights, of course you're gonna get emotional. Of course you're gonna say he's lying because you've wasted your life in these libraries poring over these dusty, you know, mathematical equations and
Like
whatnot.
an idiot, like
nothing.
a loser.
And that is a convenient frame because like what the general critique that I've seen of Gary is not like, well, we can't believe he's talking about inequality. It's that he's really simplifying things and he isn't dealing with the complexity. So it's the opposite of what he says. He says people aren't willing to, you know, think about models that have multiple things in it. But the response that I've predominantly seen is that his solutions are too simplistic because they're not including a whole bunch of other factors, right? And so I think it's less about people being triggered by the suggestion that inequality should be mentioned and more that it's a very heavy-handed rhetoric, and it's kind of presenting anybody that disagrees. They're just a stultifying orthodoxy who's been brainwashed by not thinking critically about things. And like, obviously that's extremely self-serving, right? You've heard all the gurus that we cover. This is how they always present themselves. Like if Jordan Peterson is talking about climate change and saying the models don't model the real world, right? They've just got all these like models where they're predicting things, but the actual climate is too complex for their models, right? And they've invested now like 20 or 30 years working on these models, doing IPCC reports and all that kind of thing. You think they can say that their models don't work?
Well, that's because there's no such thing as climate, right? Climate and everything are the same word. And that's what bothers me about the climate change types. It's like, this is something that bothers me about it technically. It's like, well, climate is about everything. It's okay.
Oh, okay.
But your models aren't based on everything. Your models are based on a set number of variables.
Yeah.
So that means you've reduced the variables, which are everything, to that set.
Yeah.
Well, how did you decide which set of variables to include in the equation if it's about everything?
Yeah.
And that's not just a criticism. That's like, if it's about everything, your models aren't right. Because your models do not and cannot model everything.
Like
That's
when
so
Jordan Peterson does it,
ingenious.
people, well, not everyone, but like
Jesus.
left-leaning people often are like, right, no, that's bullshit. People do recognize that models are imperfect. So like they notice the heavy-handed rhetoric, but I think economists are a lot less sympathetic than climate change scientists. So I think more people are okay with like saying, what shit economists are, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Less popular than climate scientists, I suppose. But yeah, look, the fundamental point is that this is not a brand new idea that does not exist before. In fact, it's an idea that is written about a lot, advocated for a lot, and analyzed a lot by professionals with a great deal of nuance and complexity. And there are
scientists say
complexities
this
and
one
difficulties
simple
involved.
trick
For
that
instance,
exposes their
one of the problems,
entire-
of course, with wealthy people is that they have very good accountants and they can have very complicated tax arrangements, and they
Yes.
can change their domicile of registered residence in order to avoid tax. And taxation avoidance is always an issue when you are thinking about any kind of tax. So I think to be contributing something useful, you have to do a little more than just say inequality is bad, tax the rich. Like if you're just going to be an activist and paint a slogan on a board, then that's fine, right? But if you're actually offering some kind of intellectual contribution, given the pretty complex and nuanced nature of the subject, you need to be offering a little more. I haven't heard Gary ever address issues like that. Maybe he has somewhere, but I think the implementation issues are complex.
Well, Matt, I do have a response. So maybe this is a good time to play that. So here's a response I think he might offer to this.
And I think when you see how like these attacks are constantly attacks on things that I've never said, I think it kind of makes it clear what's really happening here, which is you basically have a lot of rich people who are just trying to find any way to argue against the idea that they should pay more tax. It's a lot of rich people who control a lot of media, fund a lot of media, they don't want to pay tax. The last thing was this constant attack that I get, which is, well, taxing the rich is hard, and if you want to tax the rich so much, can you please show me your like completely designed tax plan? I think it should be clear at this point that I am by far the biggest and most recognised public campaigner for the need to stop growing inequality, and that there's quite a lot of pressure and work on just me to push this campaign. I think we've had massive amount of success, but even just driving the sort of public education campaign is really knackering for me, and it's been a ton of work. It should be obvious that I am not going to be able to do that and simultaneously by myself design a complete tax plan for the country. And this is what I mean when I say
What else
we
is
need
he
more
doing
people.
with his
We
time?
need more people. You know, I'm going to call out like the think tanks, the left-wing think tanks. Like, where are you? We need you. We need you guys to make these tax plans. I can't be the guy that wins the public support for this and gets attacked by the Daily Mail every day and writes the whole plan by myself. Like,
not the
we
Daily
need
Mail.
to have
Not the
more people
Daily
behind-
Mail.
More people behind this. So if there's any economists watching this, people in government, people in civil service, people in the think tanks, help us draw up these detailed tax proposals because I'm knackered and I can't do it by myself. We need help. We need help.
Yes, well, there you go. He's too knackered from doing the podcast. You know, he can't be expected to fill in the details. But I think the issue is that people are like dealing with the details. Like, I think the issue is in Gary frames himself as the understander of economics, far better than anyone in academia. All of these eggheads and stuff who say they understand it. None of them are focusing on inequality, and none of them understand it as well as he does. This is the current theme. But then when it comes to any kind of details, apart from tax the extremely rich more, this is the response. And
hold on, I don't know why somebody could just fucking make shit up in my chat. I've worked in climate research at the highest levels, and the first thing I was told was all models are wrong, some are useful. No, that's what we finally discovered on Joe Rogan. In school, you guys have no idea that your models don't accurately map the entirety of all of human existence. You guys actually think that like y equals mx plus b can explain the entire encompassing all of human experience. Like, it's actually so cringe. Like, finally we can hold you guys accountable with real public intellectuals like Gad Saad and Jordan Peterson. So don't lie ever and try to pass off wisdom from Joe Rogan as something coming from some worthless university program. Jeez.
there are people who have written books, like Tony Atkinson has written a book called Inequality, What Can Be Done? A very detailed treatment considering things like wealth taxes. So, you know, Gary doesn't necessarily have to figure it out himself. He could maybe read those books and maybe have to talk to those people and maybe get them to tell him, and then he could do his activism with their help.
Yeah, the claim that he is the most recognized public campaigner on inequality as well.
He is.
I don't know. That just, I mean, I'm not saying he hasn't been successful in growing his, you know, YouTube channel and kind of getting attention on UK media, but like, there's a lot of people who have had entire careers dedicated to, you know, highlighting wealth inequality. And like, it does remind me a little bit that Russell Brand, when he was on his left-wing revolution fears, right?
Many people want a revolution, but I'm asking you what it would be like.
Well, I think what it won't be like is a huge disparity between rich and poor, where
Based?
300 Americans have the same amount of wealth as the 85 million poorest Americans, where there is an exploited and underserved underclass that are being continually ignored, where welfare is slashed, while Cameron and Osborne go to court to defend the rights of bankers to continue receiving their bonuses. That's all I'm saying.
Holy
That's
shit.
what I'm asking. What's the scheme? You talk vaguely about revolution. What is it?
I think a socialist egalitarian system based on the massive redistribution of wealth, heavy taxation of corporations, and
Based.
massive responsibility
Based.
for energy companies and any company that's exploiting the environment. I think they should be. I think the very concept of profit should be hugely reduced. David Cameron says profit isn't a dirty word. I say profit is a filthy word because wherever there is profit, there is also deficit. And this system currently doesn't address these ideas. And so why would anyone vote for it? Why would anyone be interested in
Who
it?
would levy these taxes?
I think we do need to, like, there needs to be a centralised administrative system, but built on.
government.
Yes,
There needs to be a government.
Well, maybe call it something else. Call them like the admin bods,
Right.
so they don't get.
And
ahead
how
of
would they be
themselves.
chosen?
Jeremy, don't ask me to sit here in an interview with you in a bloody hotel room and devise a global utopian system. I'm merely pointing out that the
You're
current.
calling for revolution.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm calling for change. I'm calling for genuine alternatives.
He would constantly make these claims that like, we're starting a movement. We're going to get politics back, you know, so that it's actually taking care of the little people, that, you know, these elites. So the rhetoric is very similar, but at least in this case, like, Gary isn't leaning into right-wing populism stuff, at least not yet. But it's just, that notion that, you know, nobody else is doing it. I can't do it all on my own. And you're like, but, you know, just like you're ignoring all of the economists that do focus on inequality, there's a lot of other people that have been, you know, running campaigns and like promoting this topic for a long time.
And I think if you're going to be an effective activator, like an effective activist for a particular policy, it really helps to be specific about the policy that you hope to implement, and to be specific about how it's going to get done and how the problems will get sorted. And I know this from working with and talking to groups in Australia who are activating for policy change on gambling reform. And it's not enough to just say, gambling's bad, the gambling companies suck, they're ripping everyone off. That's all true.
Yes,
but
it
to be
is.
an effective activist, you actually have to map out a specific plan. Like, what specifically are you banning?
No, you
What
don't.
specifically, what measures are you looking to bring in? How are they practical? And that involves, in this context of economics, you have to do modeling. For instance, if you're proposing a 1% wealth tax on the richest people, you need to figure out, first of all, what is your threshold? That's step one, right? And Gary's threshold bounces around a bit. And then what you do is you do some economic modeling, and you say, okay, well, what are the increased government taxation receipts? What are they going to be from implementing that? What is the slippage in terms of increased tax avoidance and so on going on? What measures are you going to put in place to prevent that? And then figuring out whether or not it's actually going to make a big difference to the things that you care about, like housing affordability.
These guys are just
And
haters.
when you do
They're
those types of analyses,
huge,
and I have had a bit of a play around myself, but I'm
massive
hesitant to reveal my half-assed attempts on the podcast. But the point is, I'm not an economist. But if this was my thing, if this was literally my one job, and especially if I got such brilliant grades at the LSE and I was a superstar economics understander, I could maybe do a little bit and present some of the details there.
Yeah, okay. Well, now, Matt, on this issue about public campaigning and stuff, because it's very clear that Gary is kind of viewing himself as an activist, promoting a particular political message, right? He wants a wealth tax and he wants some reforms to housing or whatever. The specific details might not be that clear, but this is part of what he said taking a break is for.
This was always like the plan for the political project, but it's been quite a lot for me personally, and it's been knackering. And yeah, I worry a little bit about how this channel is going to work for me like long term from a mental health perspective, especially if it keeps growing. And I think politically, if we want to win, I need to make the channel keep growing. But I need to find ways to make sure like we find that balance where the channel is growing, but I'm not going insane, basically. That brings me on to my next point, which I've got written down here, which is how can we win? So obviously I'm going away for a couple of months, and I want to talk a little bit about when I go away. It's always, I've taken breaks the last 2 years. This one will be a little bit shorter. There's always two reasons I go away, which is one, to stop me from going insane, and two, because the channel has been growing really quickly for about 2 years now. And every time the channel grows, I need to kind of take a step back, reassess the situation politically and be like, okay, well, what are we going to need to be effective politically in the next couple of years? The channel is much bigger now than it was even 3 or 4 months ago. So what are we going to need now in order to win?
The point that I note there, Matt, right, apart from the thing about the mental health issue, which fair enough, like if you're somebody that's prone to getting anxiety from overworking or whatever, right, comes up, perfectly legitimate to take breaks. No shade thrown for that reason. But there is this conflation of the growth of the channel with
the success of the movement.
Of the politics. And I know that people will argue, well, look, if you have a huge audience, you're able to, better influence things. But again, there's plenty of YouTube channels with, multiple millions of subscribers.
He's the
that
only
have particular
one
political
talking about
point of view or
economic
whatever.
inequality,
And they're
though.
not dominating policy discussions. So Gary's YouTube channel is now over 1 million subscribers. But if he gets to 3 million, is that really going to supercharge the policy agenda? I think there's a potential issue there. And it also means that the audience is being asked to invest in the channel as a sign of political engagement. Which,
Yeah, I mean, and look, as someone who produces podcast episodes with you, Chris, we do a fair bit of research per episode, but not an extraordinary amount compared to some. Gary's economics, I think, gives the impression of one in which relatively little preparation is done per episode. I mean, I think that's fair to say because he does repeat himself a lot and it's not tightly scripted. If you watch other economics podcasts, you'll find that there is a density of information, a lot of citations, a lot of video graphics and statistics and analyses done. Clearly, it would take
How
a
are
lot
these
of time
guys
to
not
do.
just literal haters?
This factor is obviously
Okay.
not unique to Canada. We've seen similar asset price inflation in the US thanks to its low interest rates. But given how long it's been since Canada has experienced a real estate correction, prices were already starting off with a relatively high base. And with Canada's particularly resilient reputation, investors flooded in. In 2020, it was estimated that 1/5 of all homes in British Columbia, Ontario, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia were investor-owned, with this percentage being as high as 42% in some subdivisions of Vancouver with higher student populations. It is worth highlighting that this investor demand has primarily been domestic so far. While non-resident ownership is as high as 14.9% in the student-centric subdivisions of Vancouver, across the province of British Columbia, the rate is much lower at 7% of condominium apartments and 2.5% of houses. And while units
Notice how this guy doesn't even bring up income inequality a single time. How are you gonna?
not occupied by their usual residents, it's at roughly 7% for both Toronto and Vancouver, some of which may be vacant. This figure can also include certain types of student housing, or other forms of housing which by definition are not occupied by usual residents, with there being mixed figures and debate on how many properties in Canada are truly left vacant by investors and the like. So while foreign investors have had an influence on pocket regions of Canada, instead it's truly the combination of all these variables, the policies encouraging high demand and speculation without a subsequent follow-up in supply. And as Canadians have tried to keep pace, something else has crept up to pretty concerning levels. As prices have outpaced savings, buyers have borrowed the difference, contributing to record levels of debt in the country.
Gary is more sitting at his kitchen, sort of talking off the top of his head and kind of reiterating some of the same points again and again. As well as that, his YouTube channel is monetized, I believe. And
Yes.
with 2.2 million views per episode, that represents quite a significant amount of income.
Yes, it does. And also having, a best-selling #1 paper trade book, I think, books in general, not that profitable. But if you are a super popular book, you can get...
And to forestall the little guy from jumping out of the well, let me
Get
reiterate.
back in there.
Let us reiterate, there's nothing wrong with a content creator making money. But
There
when
is.
you combine that with a self-aggrandizing narrative
Yes.
that centers the figure themselves 100%, completely ignores and disparages any other sources of information, and also points to that kind of wounded bird grievance thing about people attacking him, and he's just so tired from the arduous efforts to create these episodes. It does smell a little bit off.
Yes, so the point that I would make there is basically every channel that I know of in the heterodox world makes the same appeal. Like Russell Brand has 6.8 million subscribers on YouTube. He's constantly telling his audience, you're helping to get the message out, take part in this, we can push back against it. Trigonometry are saying, if you subscribe and support us, you're contributing to free speech. So all these different YouTube channels are saying, make our channel bigger and we'll be able to influence the direction of the country. And will they? Now, in Gary's defense, Matt, I do have a clip that speaks to this. So you mentioned about it's all around his persona and brand. Now, he does make a point to say he doesn't want that to be the case.
The obvious, the really, really obvious weakness at the moment is that at the moment, this idea and these slogans is just way too tied to my personal brand, if you want to call it that, my media identity. And you can see that in the way that the right-wing press has, especially in the last month or so, just really aggressively tried to attack me as a person. They're not really engaging with the ideas. It's just can we somehow attack Gary Stevenson? Can we take him out? And that is because they can see that at the moment, the economic ideas are really solid, but they are so attached to me as a person that if you can take me out, you can kind of kill the movement. So I think what that shows us is that we absolutely need, in the long run, more people doing it. We need more diversity of voice. I think in particular, we need what I'm thinking of as academic cover, which is economists, people at think tanks, people with these kind of academic credentials. I have got 2 economics degrees from 2 top universities, but because I am a YouTuber now and because I look and sound working class, it's very, very important that we have this academic cover. So I think we really, really need more support from these think tanks, especially the left-wing think tanks like the New Economics Foundation, like IPPR, like the Resolution Foundation. They really need to be coming in and doing work on this. I would love to see more economists from academia writing papers on this, speaking publicly on this, looking into things like the squeezing out of wealth of the middle class. Where's the wealth going? What would the dynamics of that be? How does that affect living standards? We need more academic cover, but we don't need just academics.
Yes. We need more people involved.
Yeah, so it's not about him, Matt. It's about the general thing. So there was the issue there that there's a Lex Friedman, the slings and arrows. They're coming for me, right? They're trying to take me down. And this is in reference to some critical coverage in the Financial Times and the Daily Mail. And they're, just to be clear as well, Matt, he said, they're not really dealing with my core message. But the Financial Times is taking issue with claims that he made about being the most successful trader in City, and that sometimes in other...
the best trader in the world. And he does have a tendency towards aggrandizing statements. Even in that one there, you'll notice he slipped in the fact that he's got these degrees from the elite.
Elite university.
I swear to God, I have not listened to a single episode of Gary's Economics without him mentioning
dropping that in.
Dropping 2 or 3 of these in. Either he went to elite universities, he got the best grades, he was the best trader in the world. He works it into pretty much every bit of content he creates.
Yeah, it does come up. But the Financial Times, they actually did a fairly in-depth critical evaluation of the claims, right? And it's the Financial Times, so in part they have a focus where they're interested in the claims made around trading and whatnot, right? So they point out they interviewed 8 of his colleagues, including other people that like him, people that didn't like him so much or whatever. But the consistent thing from all of them was that his claims were hyperbolic and exaggerated. No, they weren't saying he didn't earn money, and he didn't earn money that compared to ordinary people would be considered extremely high, but just that he was not the best trader. He wouldn't have the means to know that. So they were just saying that's inaccurate. And Gary responded to that by kind of saying, yeah, all those guys, they're just interested in money and whatnot. But actually, the article is talking about this penchant he has for hyperbolic claims. And it isn't just the hippies, because there's this story in the book, which comes up often in his content as well, where the way that he got his internship initially was he won this card game organized by Citi to identify promising people that might be good at trading. And he won it because he had some knowledge about the structure of the game in advance. And it turned out, one of the claims was in the last round, they give him the worst card where he couldn't win to just see how he would do. But the Financial Times said, actually, this story checked out. When we looked into it, other people verified it. But so he presents that as, this is just a hippie trying to tear me down. But it's more saying, actually, this person has a tendency to over-exaggerate certain things, like a self-mythologizing. And also, the Daily Mail piece, which he is also hinting at there, was pointing out that his mum on social media, when his book came out, in the book he talks about not having a table, washing himself with a hose connected for a shower head and all this kind of thing. And his mum says, actually we had, our jobs were fine. Gary was very well loved. I paid for his university. In the book he didn't mention that I.
She paid for his tuition at the LSE, but wouldn't buy him a table. What a terrible woman.
Well, that's, who knows, right? Who knows? So the Daily Mail are focusing on this because they see it as, this guy is, a lefty inequality guy, but look at him being hoisted by his own petard. But again, the criticism in there is self-mythologizing and exaggerating things. And there's nothing that would be lost by saying, I was a successful trader, I made millions, and I come from a working class background. We weren't super poor, but I wasn't super wealthy. My parents helped pay for my university or this. Because it's not like working class parents don't ever try to contribute to their children's education. That's a very normal thing to do, right? So it's just that there's a kind of Dickensian presentation in a way, he has to be mathematically the best person at LSE. He has to be the greatest trader. Yes, it goes down to 1 year at Citi, but it's never just a middle of the road person who did quite well. It's always that Gary is kind of the main character in a way, and that the other people are NPCs, kind of.
They
Yeah,
are.
so we have to take that main character thing into account when he before is talking about the need for it not to be all about him and his brand, and we need to bring more diverse voices into it. I mean, I'm a little bit suspicious, and it just cannot be emphasized enough if you listen to economics podcasts like I have, that Gary's economics is different. It's different from Asianometry, it's different from the Plain Bagel, it's different from Economics Explained. There's probably a dozen others, because in none of them do they center themselves and their own narrative and
I do.
special expertise. The presentation is much more dispassionate and has far more information in it.
But as property prices have risen in the country, incomes have not kept pace, leading Canadian households to become some of the most indebted in the world, as homebuyers have made up the difference between their incomes and house prices using debt. Now, interest rates are on the rise, home prices are down 12% from their peak, and people are starting to wonder if Canada's housing market is in a soon-to-pop bubble. So, as your resident Canadian finance YouTuber, I wanted to make this video to help answer the question, how bad is it really? And to be clear, it's impossible to predict where things will go from here and to try and time a crash. And I'll try to explain the important variables that will influence the outcome one way or another without making a grand statement about how now is the time to short Canadian housing. But many Canadian households are currently experiencing significant financial strain. And while there are some unique advantages Canada has when compared to the US in the real estate space, there are also some pretty depressing, unique features to Canadian real estate.
To be clear, DGG isn't perfect, but Israel's doing really bad stuff, and people are noticing that. Noticing what? Wait, what? Can you explain why the streamer is weirdly quiet about it? Because there's just not much to talk about for Israel right now. Israel will have no leash on them for basically anything. What do you want me to say? Well, it's bad. I've said this a million times.
That makes the area harder to manage than an asbestos-laden popcorn ceiling. So let's talk about real estate in Canada. Buckle up. It's going to be a ride. On today's
Buckle
Plain
up.
Bagel.
That's not to say that Gary never includes any good information or that all his analyses are wrong. I've seen a bunch of his videos, and some of his analyses I think are fine. And I think he makes valid points about the compounding nature of wealth, wage stagnation. All those points have been made by other people many times, but he's not wrong to point them out.
Well, a bit more about the type of political campaigning that he's envisioning, because, he was talking there about academics need to step up. Presumably this is academics that have broken out of their model obsession or whatever, but so I guess they do exist. But it's not just academics, right? We need something else. So what other things do we need?
We just need way more diversity of voice in general. So one thing that I've seen, which I've really liked, it's been very meaningful to me personally, is when like different kinds of communicators and artists come in. So there was a clip of me on the Rizzle Kicks album, John Stevens, who I know a little bit. They put me on their album. Somebody sent us a cartoon they've been making based on the educational series, Learning the Economy, which is on this channel.
Jesus.
That stuff is really powerful as well. I think I would love to see more communicators.
Put me in their stuff.
When we get loads and loads of messages, like tons of messages of people like, we love what you're doing. How can we help? Can I come and work for you? How can we help? And it's impossible really for me to even read all these messages, never even reply to these messages. So what I want to do is tell you, don't come to me, just do it. Just do it. Just understand the messages and just do it. Just go make the thing. This guy's making the cartoon, making the music, whatever you want to do. You want to print stickers, you want to make merch. I'm not going to sue anybody for making any merch using our name or making any art using our ideas or make any music, like taking clips. Just go make it. Do the thing. I want to see more influencers coming through talking about these ideas. I want to see economists talking about these ideas. I want to see artists making art. I want to see musicians making music. Stickering campaigns. I would never ever encourage anyone to do a graffiti campaign or a stickering campaign or a postering campaign. Just do the thing. Do the thing that you want to do. Do the thing. Use your skill. And if that means just like make a little community group talking to your community, and this is the thing which I always encourage. Just go and do it. Share the message.
To me, Matt, there's the charitable way to read that, which is like, so he's saying, you don't need him. You go out, just like if you agree with the messages, find your thing and channel it into whatever kind of activism that, suits you.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. Right? I think that's a good message. But there's also the side of it, which is like, people are taking me, they're putting me in the rap song, they're making cartoons out of my content. If you want to make stickers of like, and use the channel, that's fine. That's all good.
This guy's a hater.
I'm kind of like, okay, so that sounds a bit more like, homegrown fan content, right? Like,
organic stuff that kind of promotes the channel and the brand. Those were the examples he provided. But like you said, maybe those were just examples that sprang to mind. Maybe he was thinking of other stuff too that doesn't involve him.
Yeah. And, there was one thing I wanted to mention, not related to this, but it's that, we've covered a lot of rather nefarious you've got your Scott Adams. You recently had Michael Schellenberger, Jordan Peterson, Chris Langan, the Red Scar Girls, whatever. Like people that I think are doing serious harm to the world through serving as propagandists or just promoting rather hateful ideologies, right? Like there's a lot of people that we've covered that fall into that, and I would say probably the majority of it are in the kind of right-wing reactionary space within it, right? Like racist stuff and all that kind of thing. And so Gary, just to be clear here, we are going to look critically at his content and whatnot, but it should be borne in mind that for all our critiques, his primary focus is wealth inequality and perhaps a wealth tax, right? So even if we are highlighting things that he's doing that we consider like gururish, that does make a difference. That like his agenda, such as it's presented as content, isn't really the kind of thing where you're going to have people dragged off the immigration internment camps and whatnot. So yeah, I just wanted to make that clear to people that like we're analyzing the rhetoric and we put different people into the barometer and whatnot, but it doesn't mean that we're saying their overall effect is the same, right? Like even if they do display gururish tendencies.
Indeed, yeah. Don't think I can add to that really. That sounds right to me.
That's well. Anyway, back to what we were talking about. Well, this is a very minor point, but the Democrats and all that kind of thing, they got criticized, right, for their campaign focused on cozying up to celebrities or whatever, getting Oprah to endorse. But is that not what that sounds a little bit like as well?
Wait, what is this?
I know you told me you voted. What? I know you told me you voted for President Trump. What were you hoping that he would do?
I was hoping he would did something that made sense regarding the economy, made some kind of progress in bettering, the benefits of being a veteran. But I mean, it just seemed like he actually cared about doing what was best for the country, but now it just feels like all about me, Donald Trump, not, the guy out there working in the trenches trying to make ends meet, trying to pay a mortgage, trying to pay the bills. It goes against everything I expected when, I voted for him.
So you're not satisfied with what you said?
No. And it doesn't even have to do with anything about me getting fired. I mean, if I had gotten fired as part of the, government, cutting government spending, I would have been fine with that. I can accept that. But he's not delivering on anything he said he was going to do. So what's your real game plan? It doesn't make sense to me.
There are some things that he promised to do that he has put in place. I mean, there are executive orders that he's done, that he said that he was going to do. You don't feel like he's lived up to those promises?
I mean, where are the results?
Ooh.
I mean, seriously, prices are still going up.
Ooh.
We're now in the middle of a tariff war with a bunch of countries that used to be our steadfast allies. I mean, how do you make an enemy of Canada? They're right next to us, and they've been one of our premier allies and commerce partners for, I mean, seriously, like what, centuries now?
And he did say that he was going to put tariffs in place. Did you just not think that they would be implemented in this particular way?
I didn't think they were going to be put in play in a juvenile way. I mean,
this guy's a plan. I'm not buying this.
To actually talk to the heads of these other countries, like, hey, I feel you have unfair tariffs against our products. I'd like to talk about it first, and if we can work out some kind of resolution, then I feel to protect our people, we need to implement this kind of tariff. There was no attempt at even talking to the other countries.
I'm not buying this for 1 microsecond. Wait, somebody said Temple had who on the show? Sargon of Akkad, that guy's still around? Holy shit.
Reported.
Oh, Myron.
Today, President Donald Trump was asked about what's he going to do about these activist judges. And he didn't actually say this. I want to make sure this is very clear as we get off to a good start here. He didn't actually say he wants to suspend habeas corpus, but he kind of did. He said, we may have to do something that only 3 other presidents have ever done, and I hope it doesn't go that way. And considering the conversation that's been occurring on podcasts with, say, Steve Bannon and also DC Drano, a.k.a. Rogan O'Hanley's question to the press secretary about suspension of habeas corpus, and then Charlie Kirk tweeting out that the president is considering suspending habeas corpus, it seems like that may be, at the very least, a big ask that Trump is trying to make. Essentially saying to these judges, if I have to, I will use Article 2, Section 9 of the Constitution and suspend habeas corpus for illegal immigrants and deport them, which would be a massive move if he did. We've got to break this down because I want to stress that Trump didn't explicitly say the words habeas corpus. I don't know what else he could be insinuating. The other big news, of course, is that the U.S. and Ukraine have signed this minerals deal. Now, this may signal a coming end to the war. Why? Because we want those minerals, and we ain't going to get them so long as Russia is shooting missiles and shooting guns. However, some are concerned that this basically means the U.S. is going to stay entrenched in this war, now with an active financial interest tied to winning it. Hopefully that won't be the case. Putin did offer up a ceasefire. We'll see if that actually plays out. And a couple other stories. We'll get to the fun ones where Donald Trump said that the ABC News was fake news to this reporter's face. And it was cool. We'll talk about all that. But before we do, my friends, we got a great sponsor. It's Bearskin. Do you guys notice that I'm wearing this hoodie shell right now? It's so good.
Whoa.
I'm super impressed. I really am. So you guys remember that we did we were sponsored by Bearskin before. It's BAERSKIN. And we actually got some sent to us to try out, and I'm incredibly impressed. So basically, this thing I'm wearing right here, this is the shell. It zips into this super thick fleece hoodie that I can't actually wear because it's way too hot. It's a tank. It's basically a 3-in-1 hoodie rain jacket combo. You can zip them together, and boom, you got a waterproof system that can handle everything from cold mornings to sudden rain, whatever. The hoodie itself, it's built like a tank, but it feels like a pullover. Made with 340 grams of original bearskin fleece. It's got 10 pockets inside and outside. It's not bulky at all. It's easy to wear. It looks great, and still breathable when you're out working, hiking, or running errands. Honestly, these things, I'm extremely impressed. Legit, I actually am. This is awesome. Phil's even wearing one. You can unlock a 60% off deal on the Bearskin hoodie today. Here's what you do. Just text the word Tim to 36912 right now. Super easy to do. Just text TIM to the number 36912. They'll send you a link for 60% off that you can come back to later, especially if you're doing something else right now and you still want to secure that discount link. Also, that's very clever. That's a smart way to do it. Make sure people have access to that. Because I know a lot of people listen to this podcast are like they're driving. Like, I can't get in there. Well, that'll make it easy for you guys. Don't forget to also head over to timcast.com. This Saturday, we're doing the Culture War live. It's going to be epic. Sold out already, and we're planning to do a bunch more, so you don't want to miss it. You can join our Discord server at timcast.com by going and clicking join us. Don't miss out, man. The Discord server is absolutely fantastic. Don't forget to also smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Myron Gaines.
Hey, what's up, man? Happy to be back.
Who are you? What do you
do? Myron Gaines, one half of the Fresh Fit podcast. Do political, cultural, dating commentary, all that type of stuff. Monday through Friday, Myron Gaines X on YouTube and Rumble. And the Fresh Fit podcast, of course, as usual, Monday through Friday as well, 8 p.m. all the way up until 2 o'clock in the morning sometimes. So.
Wow. Well, right on. Thanks for hanging out. We got Ian.
I want to be on one of those shows one day with all those girls.
Hey, man, let me know. You're moving out to Miami. So.
Yeah, I'll be down there to visit next week, so let's make something. That'd be fun as hell.
Bring on some girls. I think they'd love that.
That'd be so wild.
Fun as
love
hell.
And communication. It'd be mind-blowing.
You can see the illusion that I see every day.
That'd be so awesome. Tim, I want to shout out your daily show, your Timcast channel with you had Ben Davidson on today.
Yeah.
Awesome, dude.
I mean, maybe we should talk about that too, because this power outage in Europe, Ben Davidson, he's a space weather guy, was basically saying at the same time the power went out, you could see the solar panels excess output. And he was saying the magnetosphere got weak, and this wasn't a solar storm, it was normal solar radiation leaking into the earth, causing this, what do they call it, atmospheric induction or something? So it's pretty nuts, but he was like, I didn't expect this stuff to start happening until the 2040s. Now the power's going out. Also happened in Puerto Rico. Did you guys know that?
No.
The entire island went out power.
Same time, same storm, same issue.
Different storm, a week prior.
I gotta say, great stuff. I'm glad you're interviewing people on that show because that was super cool to see Ben. And I also want to point people to my channel on YouTube, X Rumble. I'm going to be interviewing Richard Gage tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Nice.
Yeah, he founded Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. The guy is an OG when it comes to studying the Twin Towers, the collapses of the Twin Towers. He brings the receipts. So come check me out at 4 p.m. tomorrow, and I'll see you there.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary. Let's get into it.
Here's a story from the
An anti-communist? What the fuck does that mean?
Post-millennial. They say Trump considers suspending writ of habeas corpus.
Man, I was watching your debates, but these streams are hard to watch with the content or with the constant fast forwarding. Are they speaking that fast? Here, there you go.
To combat
Is the green room guy? Yep.
Is blocking deportation. Now, I must admit, when we were originally thinking the big story for today that we want to cover is this Ukraine peace deal. Not peace deal, but the minerals deal. But this is, should it be true, massive. Now, the thing is, Trump didn't explicitly say it, but I think it's clear what he's intending. Charlie Kirk said it. Charlie Kirk is in the know, so maybe he's just insinuating, or maybe Charlie knows something, but we've been hearing this conversation bubbling up. I got to be honest, it sounds like the inner circle, Donald Trump's team, is they're putting out feelers on the suspension of habeas corpus. The president has the authority to do it under Article 2, Section 9 of the Constitution. He can, in the event of an invasion. Let me play this tape for you guys. You can hear for yourself what he said, and then we'll go through it.
You mentioned this last night in your speech in Tacoma. We're facing an unprecedented situation where there's a lot of abuses of nationwide injunctions sort of seemingly designed to curtail your power, specifically when it comes to deporting these illegal, violent aliens that came in under the previous administration. Have you spoken to your team about ways to mitigate this and continue to deliver for the American people on
Well,
that
there
aspect?
are ways to mitigate it, and there's some very strong ways. There's one way that's been used by 3 very highly respected presidents, but we hope we don't have to go that route. But there is one way that has been used very successfully by 3 presidents, all highly respected, and hopefully we don't have to go that way. But there are ways of mitigating that. I want to thank you all very much.
There are ways. Charlie Kirk tweets, President Trump is considering suspending writ of habeas corpus for illegal aliens to combat national injunctions by activist judges designed to block deportations. President Abraham Lincoln famously issued the Presidential Proclamation in 94, suspending the writ of habeas corpus during the Civil War. We then have this story of Common Dreams. This is a progressive activist site. Absolute insanity. Right-wing activist asks if Trump will suspend habeas corpus to expel more migrants. And then, of course, appearing on Steve Bannon's War Room, Mediaite reports MAGA influencer tells Steve Bannon Trump, quote, will have no choice, end quote, but to suspend habeas corpus. And that was a week ago. I think these narratives are emerging because people who are in the inner circle are telling Trump, his advisor are telling him this, these nationwide injunctions are unconstitutional. They're not going to stop. Anything you try to do on deportation, they will circumvent. However, let me pull this up. Article 2 of the Constitution, right here, right? Executive power vested in the president. We go down to, I'm sorry, did I get, wait, where is it? Clause, section, what's that? I got the wrong one. Which article was it? Was it Article 9? I think I had the wrong article pulled up.
I'm not sure what you're looking for, so I can't help.
There's, under the executive authority, the president has the authority to declare, I got to figure out which one this is. I thought I had pulled up, I pulled the wrong one. The president has the authority during times of rebellion or invasion to suspend habeas corpus.
Yeah.
Sorry, okay, I just had to check real quick. I don't think, there's only 7 articles in the Constitution, right? But, okay. I was just checking, I was like, wait, what?
Find it. Regarding this as an invasion, I was thinking a couple days ago. I've been thinking this for a while.
What were you
Even
thinking,
if the
buddy?
Biden administration had tried to defend our country against the invasion, there was like 12 million. You found it?
Wrong article.
Okay.
My bad.
Which you
It's
got?
Article 1, Section 9.
Based.
Oh, okay.
The privilege of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it.
So you might think, is it an invasion if they don't have weapons? Well, technically yes. So even if the Biden administration had defended our borders against it and only 3 million people got through instead of 12 million, we'd still have to do something about those 3 million people.
The Biden administration invited people. They didn't do anything to prevent illegal immigration.
That's crazy, dude.
They were not, defending the border. This is, to me, this is obvious, right? I know that there are a lot of people that are going to be like, oh, well, this is a problem, and the president can't do this, or it's unconstitutional.
Who cares?
There was absolutely an invasion of millions and millions and millions and millions of people that the previous administration just allowed into the country. The only way you can get rid of them, and we've talked about this, you are not going to be able to have every single person go in front of the judge, and that's what the left wants. So take that option off the table. Other presidents in history have done it during unprecedented times. This is an unprecedented situation. Do it.
So I'll tell you where my mistake was. I was assuming this is under Article 2 because it relates to the president's powers because presidents did this. However, the argument that people have is that Section 9 pertains to the legislative branch. And I don't know that actually is true just because it's under Article 1, which Section 1 states legislative powers vested in Congress and largely deals with Congress. And the reason I say this is that Abraham Lincoln suspended the writ of habeas corpus unilaterally. And it was only a few years later Congress actually passed a bill basically saying, yeah, that was okay. Like that he did that. So the question is going to be, can the president unilaterally do this? Well, the precedent is that he can.
Of course he can.
And this is going to get very interesting. I don't know. I got no answers for you. We can't exist in a country where you can let in 20 million illegal immigrants and then Trump can't use standard deportation powers.
Right. If it happens again, you just can't.
It's not even just about Trump. It's about the following administration trying to right a wrong that the previous administration did.
True.
They neglected to do their job. Joe Biden himself said you should surge the border, invited anyone that could get here into the country, and then they started shipping them throughout the country in order to change the political makeup of the several states. That's what the HHS was doing with the refugee resettlement program. These are all well documented. We talked about this. That was a real program that the HHS was doing. It's not happening anymore under Kennedy, thankfully. But the remedy for this is to get the people that are here illegally out of here. And if the requirement to put them in front of a judge, which I don't even think that that's actually a requirement anyways, but if that's the narrative that the left's going for, or that's what people want to see, just get rid of the habeas corpus for non-citizens. And this shouldn't be a blanket for all Americans. If you're in the U.S. and you're a citizen, you should, of course, you should have your the right to habeas corpus, but when it comes to, here, if people that are here illegally, just ship them out.
What about people on green cards?
Who cares,
legal
bro?
Visitors.
Well, those people wouldn't be subject to deportation for being here illegally.
But if they had habeas corpus stripped, if only citizens remained with habeas corpus, what would that mean exactly for people that were here on a green card?
No one knows and no one
The
cares,
State
dog.
Department could come up with a solution for that.
Yeah,
But
we'll
if the
figure it
state
out.
would say, okay, you're here on a green card, then okay, you can stay, because green cards are something that are Green cards are at
That's
the
a
discretion of the State
privilege.
Department.
Yeah.
So like a visa.
Those are also
Unless you're on a visa.
Those are also at the
They would-
discretion.
But so if the habeas corpus was suspended for a human in the United States, what would that mean? They have no civil rights?
No, that just means that means to deport them, they don't have to go in front of a judge.
What other rights do they
So
lose?
this means specifically one thing. Illegal immigrants right now can be subject to expedited removal. They'll go before judges.
Wait, how did he? This guy's Ian, right? Did he know more about habeas corpus? Means you can be arrested for no reason or any reason, and you don't have to have charges read to you, not just for deportation.
No, that just means that means to deport them, they don't have to go in front of a judge.
What other rights
So,
do they
so
lose?
this means specifically one thing. Illegal immigrants right now can be subject to expedited removal. They'll go before judges. That's just not a thing that happens. An ICE agent can see a guy and say, we have reason to believe that you're an illegal immigrant, you have paper, you have an ID or whatever. If the suspicion rises to probable cause, then they can detain you for longer and try and figure things out.
Why are Dems pushing for the assault weapon ban now? I don't know. It was like one dude I saw. I don't even know who it was. I have no fucking idea. I have absolutely no fucking idea. Hopefully it's a troll and it was like some epic bait and they're going to show us how it's an epic bait, but I have no idea why they would even try to. It's like the most divisive issue for Dems is to start fucking fixating on guns. I hope that was just a meme by that one congressman.
Meaning, do they think your documents are forged? But let's say what typically happens. A guy comes in, they say, what are you doing? They say, I've
Adam
come here,
Schiff,
you know,
yeah.
I don't have any paperwork or whatever. Okay, expedited removal. That means we can get you out of here ASAP. You don't go before a judge. That's most of the cases. That's what
25
Obama was doing to the tunes of millions. Suspending habeas corpus means that the people who live here, who are considered MS-13 or Tren de Aragua, that have been adjudicated as such, will not get a hearing. They will be deported right away. So the Supreme Court basically said everybody's got to get a habeas hearing. That's where, when they arrest somebody, they can go before a judge and determine whether or not it was lawful detainment or arrest. Do we have the right to hold you? But in the instance of like Kilmar Abrego Garcia, 2 courts had already adjudicated him as a member of MS-13. The only due process issue that's being questioned is he was supposed to get an interview with a USCIS agent to determine whether or not the circumstances in El Salvador had changed. They have changed, so he is safe. So it's only a technicality that he didn't get his review after the fact. Trump administration could probably do that review and it would be over, and they could even do it from here, from the office, without interviewing the guy. They just be like, we review the circumstances of El Salvador. He's fine. He's safe in prison. Have fun.
So this, oh, sorry.
No, that's it.
So this is kind of a sticky situation because I see the arguments that like Phil's making where it's like, hey, look, the Democrats created a big problem for us. We have all these people that are here illegally that, quite frankly, we don't have the infrastructure to properly get them in front of immigration judges to get, some type of proper, adjudication. But at the same time, I also see the problem where you can have people where won't be able to see a judge in their case, right? Like we can look at some of the people that are being, arrested by ICE for, their comments against Israel, right? The anti-Semitism laws that they push, like the girl that wrote the op-ed or Mahmoud Khalil, whatever, where they're not going to get due process. So I see both ends because there's people that need to be removed that are here illegally that, you might need the suspension of habeas corpus to kind of get things through because we don't have the immigration infrastructure to deal with it. But at the same time, you do have a good amount of people, or you do have people that do have valid cases where they need to go see an immigration judge. So it's a very difficult situation where you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. And it's tough. It really is tough in this situation because there's people that quite literally need to be removed, and honestly, they don't even get a right to a judge because they've been ordered removed by an immigration judge. And then you got other people that kind of have to go through the process and see an immigration judge.
There's no answer. There's no
clear-cut answer here because every case is different.
Well, what I mean is, you've got TDA, you've got MS-13, and you have 20 million illegal immigrants that flooded the country.
20 million?
They are doing everything in their
That number
power
gets
to
higher every time they bring it
unconstitutionally
up.
block Trump. The problem is Trump can do nothing and then be unconstitutionally blocked, or he can declare, as Abraham Lincoln did, we're going to suspend habeas corpus for these people under the Alien Enemies Act and deport them to El Salvador. Why is he doing that? Because Venezuela will not take back their TDA members. The people from Venezuela who were released from the prisons and kicked out of the country, many of Tren de Aragua, Venezuela basically said, screw you, we won't accept your flights. So where do we deport them to? Trump cut a deal with El Salvador saying, hey, we've got criminal gang members from Venezuela. Venezuela won't take them back. El Salvador said, we'll take them, but their criminal gang members are going to jail. And Trump said, okay. Supreme Court said they got to have a habeas hearing before you do that. If he suspends this, he can deport them under the Alien Enemies Act. Just, there you go.
It's a lot of freaking power for one man.
It is, but here's the problem. I do not want Trump to suspend habeas corpus. Obviously, he's not doing it for all Americans. He's doing it for illegal immigrants. Meaning, only after you... Okay, so these are people who are found to have already been TDA or MS-13. They are picking them up, sending them back. Sending them to El Salvador or to jail. There's no hearing for this. They're not American citizens. So it is a difficult position. I do not want Trump to do that. However, the position we are in right now is Trump does nothing, and then we have MS-13 gang members, 20 million illegal immigrants. And I'm talking like at large. I mean, some argue it's 10, some argue it's 40. If Trump does nothing, it gets worse, and then we have to deal with the ramifications of that.
Like their kids.
And not only that, the
And their
immigration system is extremely cumbersome, slow. Like we're talking about people might not be able to see a judge for years, and this is why we have a lot of the problems that we have is because these immigration judges, a lot of the times, this is what happened with Biden. Basically, these illegal aliens would come in, they would get a notice to appear instead of an expedited removal. They get the NTA, and then they kind of just go out into the wind, and they don't see a judge for years. And this has been a problem in the immigration system for a while. Even when I was on a job, I knew that if I gave some...
It's almost like we should have actually passed that bill that would have done something to alleviate a lot of these issues.
When NTA, they want to see a judge for a very long time. That's why I rarely ever gave out NTAs except unless they were informants. So we have a big problem in the immigration world where we also need to reform the immigration court system as well.
And listen, I hear your concern about people that are targeted for for violate for what essentially is freedom of speech, right?
Yeah.
And I understand your point when it comes to there should be no laws against criticizing Israel.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be laws against anti-Semitic speech either. I'm fully on the same page with you there.
Sure.
I will say that the people that are targeted by ICE and stuff like that, when it comes to those type of activities, they're also almost to a man anti-American and anti-Western, very frequently anti-capitalist. They're anti-American, and they want to see, the destruction of the United States, destruction of the Western way of life. So, whereas I do understand your point, and if it was just about Israel, I'd be on the same page with you. But I don't, because of the other activities that they're involved in, almost all the time, I don't have a problem with getting them.
What's the anti-Semitism? What happened? Like some people.
Yeah, so like two big people were like there was a bunch of students that have been basically arrested and deported by ICE because of their speech that's critical of Israel. Like one girl up in Boston, she wrote an op-ed and they went and grabbed her. And here's my thing when it comes to anti-Semitism thing. Like I used to work for ICE, so I understand how their resources are kind of spread thin when it comes to going and deporting people. I think going after college students that are legally here on F1 visas, that are going to class and doing what they're supposed to do, and their criticisms of Israel, targeting them is a gross misuse and waste of resources that they could be using on going on illegal aliens. Because number one, we don't have the immigration infrastructure from the court system, and we also don't even have the resources when it comes to agents going after these guys. To waste it on people that are talking about Israel is kind of ridiculous, especially when they're legally here versus all the people that are illegally here that really need to be deported.
I'm on the same page with you. I completely agree. That is fair. But there is the Venn diagram of people that are anti-Israel, that are also anti-America and anti-West is almost a circle. You can't, if you listen to people and not saying that, just for an example of the attitude, right? Hassan Piker, very, very, very anti-Israel, very critical of Israel, right? Also hates America, hates capitalism.
Pro MS-13.
Pro MS-13.
Very successful capitalist, by the way.
Just every bad thing that you don't want in your country, that's Hassan. Now, I'm not saying Hassan should be sent out of the country. He's an American citizen, even if he's an anchor baby. But I use him as an example of the attitude and the opinions that tend to be of the people that are critical.
Let me respond to that.
Israel.
I think that's what sets us apart and makes us the best country in the world is because we allow people that don't like our government, that don't like our country, to be able to exist and say it. And that's quite literally what separates us from these other countries. That's what makes us so great.
Again,
so though I disagree with their worldview and I think that they're wrong, I think us allowing them to say what they want to say for their political views separates us from everyone else and makes us great.
I'm with you, except for people that are not American citizens. Hassan, as an American citizen, fine. He can say that stuff. He's an American. He was born here. Cool. American citizens can be critical of the United States government, can be critical of our way of life. That's fine. But if you're going to come to the United States and you're going to go to school and you're going to be here as a guest, and then you're saying things like America must be destroyed, beat it.
Well, here's
beat
the thing,
it.
Though I see your perspective, and I actually do see where you're coming from with there. The reality is this: they can burn an American flag and be fine. It's when they talk about Israel that they're getting deported. That's the problem. That's my issue. We will enforce immigration law on people that are critical of Israel instead of people that are insulting the United States.
I don't have a problem.
If they just said that to America and didn't say anything about Israel, they could stay. But if they say, I don't like Israel, or write an op-ed about it where they're not even talking about anything else besides the country of Israel, not Hamas, by the way, they're getting deported. That's my problem.
And again, that when it comes to the whether they're critical of Israel or not, I'm on the same page with you. Like, there should be no laws against anti-Semitism. There should be no laws against people that are being critical of Israel. I'm 100% on board with that.
I hate these anti-Americans just like you. I should put them in jail. But my thing is that's what makes our country so great. I know. But that's what makes our country so great is that we allow them to say that they hate America.
Better idea. Moratorium on immigration.
I mean,
I agree. 1 to 5 years bare minimum.
5 years?
1 to 5. I mean, 1 to 5 years bare
reasonable.
minimum. I've said this for a minute. No more people in for 1 to 5 years.
That's not a long time. That's reasonable.
Yeah.
And largely because
we need to reform everything, Tim. And I can go through all the weak points that we have, like the visa system broken, people coming in here on J1s, F1s, destroying our countries, overstaying their visas. We got the border, which Trump shut down for a good amount, but it's still susceptible to people coming in illegally. The marriage fraud scheme that we have, where people are literally abusing our documents.
Remember, I always said this is what they actually mean. When they say, like, oh, no, I want a big wall but a big, beautiful door. Or I just want to calm down illegal immigration. No, that's bullshit. They were always like, we just need to curb all of it. That's always what the position was.
It's a benefit fraud situation. We're getting beat on so many different angles when it comes to immigration.
Let me jump to the story from Fox News. Blue state judge attempts to stop Border Patrol from arresting suspected illegal immigrants without warrant. Border Patrol argues it's changed its procedures, making ruling irrelevant. This is a weird story.
Deport her to the crystals.
A California judge, I believe it's a guy, isn't it? A California judge, but it's funny. Actually, it is a woman. A California judge on Tuesday demanded Border Patrol agents allow people they think are living in the U.S. illegally to stay in the country unless authorities have a warrant or reason to believe the person may flee before they can get one. U.S. District Judge Jennifer L. Thurston ruled on Tuesday that CBP agents in the Eastern District of California cannot stop illegal immigrants without reasonable suspicion or deport them via voluntary departure unless that person is explained their rights and agrees to leave, according to a report from the AP. That's right. In California, they said that if CBP finds an illegal immigrant, they have to ask them politely to leave, and if the illegal immigrant says no, they can't do anything
But if
about it.
they're an illegal immigrant, is that not reasonable suspicion?
Yes.
Okay, then how is she saying that?
I can talk about this in detail. Number one, she doesn't have the authority to say that because she's a district judge. So district judges and immigration judges are two different things. The district judge is overseeing a lot of times criminal cases that have nothing to do with immigration. So when it comes to immigration, as an immigration enforcement officer, and there's only a couple agencies that have Title 8 authority. It's Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, ICE Enforcement Removal Operations, which are both under the umbrella of ICE. You got Border Patrol, and then you got Customs and Border Protection, CBP, OFL, blue uniform, and then Border Patrol's green uniform, both under Border Patrol, both under Customs and Border Protection. A little confusing. And then FBI has limited Title 8, and so does CBP, Air Office of Air and Marine, AMO. Now, the reality is you could conduct something called an immigration inspection, right, where you're determining someone alienage. So if you live on the southwest border, if you're like, the Border Patrol checkpoints all over the place, and you go through, they say, of what country are you a citizen of, and you have to respond whether U.S. citizen or whatever. That's considered an immigration inspection and them determining your alienage. So an immigration officer can absolutely ask you, hey, what is your status in the United States? And if you don't want to tell them, they can actually fingerprint you and figure it out under the Department of Homeland Security Act. So this is another example of an overzealous district judge thinking they know what they're talking about. But when it comes to Title 8 authority, we can absolutely ask and determine alienage, and the judge can't say shit about that.
The issue that we've got right now is that no matter what Trump does, they're claiming it's unconstitutional, despite the fact that universal injunctions and things like this are unconstitutional.
Yeah. Wow.
So what do you do? Okay. I was on Piers Morgan earlier, and Cenk Uygur was on, and Shri Thanedar. They're all saying everything he's doing is unconstitutional. He's doing all these unconstitutional things, and I'm like, so are Democrats. What does this mean? What does it matter? I got to be honest. I'm sitting here as a guy who reads the news all day, every day, watching Democrats scream that Trump is doing things that are unconstitutional while they do the exact same things, and I'm just like, for what purpose are we even debating it at this point?
Yeah, and even this immigration thing, the habeas corpus is a whole other conversation. But when it comes to determining alienage or hooking somebody up for being an illegal alien, that's 100% under the INA and Immigration Authority. A district judge has no say in that, unless it's criminal. But the thing is with immigration is a lot of these cases end up becoming administrative, which have nothing to do with the criminal court process. So her saying this, you can go ahead and yap all you want, but at the end of the day, determining alienage is 100% within their right to do so if they're a Title 8 enforcement officer.
We're looking at this potentiality of Trump may be suspending habeas corpus, which, again, it appears under Article 1. So the argument is that it's a congressional power. A legislative power, not an executive branch.
And here's the other thing, too, I'll tell you. This is how they stop terrorists a lot of times. They're a little secret that nobody knows about. In these joint terrorism task forces, right, JTTFs that the FBI runs, HSI is one of their most important partners because a lot of the times the FBI can't gather enough evidence for actual material support of terrorism. So what they have to do a lot of the times is go the immigration route. And there's many different ways that you could go after someone, whether it's denaturalizing them if they're a U.S. citizen, getting their green card revoked for certain violations, or just getting them deported outright. That is how a lot of times these terrorist plots are thwarted, is through immigration enforcement. Why? Because immigration enforcement gives you way more latitude to get things done versus through the criminal court.
We were reading an article from Matt Taibbi the other day about whether or not we're in a soft civil war. And he was talking about how 200 security officials and diplomats have written this letter saying it's time to mobilize to defend our way of life. And I see that, and I've been thinking about the population collapse quite a bit because I've been talking about it nonstop. Everybody listens, knows. Okay. And I'm looking at the immigration thing, and I see it all together. And it's probably still surface level because I don't know everything that's going on. But it really does feel like there are two universes, two realities that are fighting. Both are completely aware of what the other represents. The Democrat side is the law is what we deem it so. True. These are the textualists of the Constitution. It's just whatever is written there as we interpret, as opposed to what did the founders mean. And their worldview is...
I think he just used textualist completely the opposite way, but okay.
There's not enough people. That's a good thing because climate change is a bad thing. And you shouldn't have kids. You should get abortions. But also, we're going to open up the border and flood the country with millions upon millions of illegal immigrants, which will fundamentally alter the moral tradition and foundation of the United States. Damn. Then there's Trump. America is great. We have these structures in place. Here's what they mean. Here's what they meant. And we will use what powers we have to defend this country. The problem is both sides represent there's an end to the United States. And it's not that Trump is doing something or, I'll put it this way. What Trump is doing is desperately trying to pull the plane out of a tailspin and stop us from crashing. What the Democrats are doing is saying, you're already cooked. We're going to flood this country with people, otherwise the system crumbles anyway, and we're going to transform it into something else. It's going to be a global country for all people, multicultural with open borders. And Donald Trump is saying, keep America, America.
Wow.
But there's not enough people.
So brave.
So I bring this up because thinking about what this judge is doing, okay, it's psychotic. Like, as you mentioned, judge can't do that.
Yeah, she doesn't even have the, yeah.
This is not the first time we've seen a judge basically say, I can say and do whatever I want. I believe it was Judge Boasberg who said that he had equal powers to the president.
Insane.
What? Absolutely does not. It's absolutely
he definitely
untrue.
said
but
that.
they
I'm sure
don't care. And so the issue is, whatever's going to happen, you've got two distinct worldviews that want control of this country, and they are headed for a collision course, whatever that means.
And the other thing too, right, is like, so, and we were talking about this earlier, like the problem with a lot of these liberals and these Democrats is like they're trying to paint Trump as like some crazy fascist or whatever because XYZ. Like the perfect example of what went down in Minnesota or Milwaukee, wherever it was, with this judge that tried to block these agents from arresting this guy that was illegally here, right? I saw every big left-wing political commentator, so this is fascism, look at this, Trump is arresting judges, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is that judge broke the law. I mean, if we're going to go through it, that illegal alien that was there, and I'll go through this nice and factual so everyone understands, and I literally can debate any liberal on this because they don't know immigration law and they're stupid. It's very simple. Yeah, let's go through this because every single one of them gave this same exact talking point. He's arresting judges now, this is fascism. Okay, here are the facts. This guy was arrested back in 2013. I think Flores Ruiz is his last name. He was arrested back in 2013. He was arrested in Nogales, Arizona, right on the border. He was brought in. He got caught. Border Patrol gave him what's called an expedited removal. That is good because they get deported within 2 weeks. They don't really see an immigration judge because they got caught on the load. They're not supposed to be here. Inadmissible. Boom. So that means he can't come to the United States. He comes back in again. He gets caught. He gets arrested for domestic violence, and he goes to see the judge. Immigration obviously is aware of this. Maybe there was a detainer put, whatever, but they know that he's here legally and he's there. He's at the court thing.
Yeah. Was the victim a man or a woman?
I think it was his girlfriend or wife.
Okay.
Misdemeanor domestic violence, basically.
On Fox, they said he beat a man.
Okay.
But then a separate time, they said that there were 2 female witnesses there seeking justice. So
Okay. I know it was a misdemeanor crime of DV, either or. So people are getting mad, right, saying, oh, well, because then what happens is this is very important. So the agents go to the courthouse and they are talking with the bailiffs. Hey, look, we're here to effectuate an arrest. This guy's coming here, etc. The guys say, okay, cool, whatever. Now they're giving a courtesy by even saying why they're there. They don't need to tell them why they're there, but they go ahead and they say there. Then they wait outside the courtroom. The defense attorney comes out, and I read this on a criminal complaint. The defense attorney comes out, sees them. Obviously, cops look like cops. Hey, these guys are probably feds. They're here to pick this guy up. So she goes and tells the judge. Judge comes out angry, tells him, hey, what are you guys here for? The deportation officer's an idiot. He goes, oh, yeah, I'm here to pick up this guy. Do you have a judicial warrant? That's irrelevant. This guy's illegally here. He's ordered deported by a judge. He's not supposed to be here. He was expedited removed. Whatever. So she takes him to another judge's chambers, the chief judge, while she has her hearing. Luckily, the DEA agent that was there, that was a part of this arrest task force, is sitting on the bench. They didn't identify him. So he has eyes on the guy. When the guy finishes his court appearance, Flores Ruiz, the judge takes him through her chambers, which is something that you never do, right? No one goes to the judge's chambers except for agents a lot of times, her and her staff. She takes him through her chambers and then goes outside the side. Now, the DEA agent sees this and he tells other guys, hey, just so you guys know why you guys are wasting your time in this other judge's chambers because he's trying to call his boss and stuff, why he's there, explaining himself for no reason. The guy gets in an elevator with his defense attorney. They're talking to each other in Spanish. DEA agent is there listening. They don't know he's an agent. They get outside. He's telling the guys, hey, come outside. He's out. He's out. So they go out and they identify themselves. Foot chase ensues. They go and grab him. Now, here's the problem. The reason why they go to the courthouse to do this stuff is because they know it's sanitary. They know he doesn't have a gun. He doesn't have a weapon. It's a safe place to effectuate the arrest. We do it all the time. I used to do it all the time, right? So when this judge purposely took them around the side, didn't let them be there and make their lawful arrest that they were supposed to make, she obviously obstructed them. And I would argue 8 U.S.C. 3024. Anyone could look this up. There's a substatute in there which entices or enables aliens to stay in the country illegally. Now, here's the other thing. Where people say, due process. He shouldn't even have been here in the fucking first place to be able to commit that domestic violence. So there is no due process for him because he was ordered removed.
There's another question for a federal, outside of immigration, in that this is a man facing criminal charges.
Yep.
Ignore immigration. Let's say a guy, an American-born guy, his name's Cletus, and he mercilessly beat his wife. And he comes to the court, and his wife is there with her, mom, and they're crying, and they're like, look what he did to her. And the judge goes, I'm going to sneak you out of here. And then takes this guy accused of mercilessly beating his wife, shuffles him out the back door and says, run for it.
Yeah.
That's a crime too.
Yeah, it is.
So outside of immigration, there should be other federal charges on this.
And the thing is, like with these guys, they're being really nice, very polite. Because I get it. You're there in a state court. You're there to conduct an arrest. You don't want to create problems. You kind of want to be able to do this later on in the future. But the judge got in the way and obviously obstructed. So 100%, she's in the wrong. She deserves to go to jail for that. And all these, Democrats are going wild because literally, dude, it's like they all gave the same talking point. Trump is a fascist. He's arresting judges now for doing their jobs. They're standing up for due process, blah, blah. But what they don't understand is that guy didn't deserve due process because he shouldn't have been here in the first place.
No.
The Democrats don't get this.
Hold on. This is the gaslighting. Okay?
Be careful
Everybody
about the guy doesn't deserve due
process.
Yeah.
Due process does not mean criminal trial. Due process, legally defined, is the fair treatment under the law. Illegal immigrants get fair treatment under the law.
Yep.
An ICE agent will stop them and say, I have reason to believe you're not a citizen. Can you show me some ID? If they can't, they say, okay, come with me. We're going to come and check out who you are. Turns out he's not a citizen. Expedited removal. You don't even go to a judge.
Well, here's the thing. If you got ordered expedited removal, I don't even got to do all that. I just take them. And that's what I'm trying to say. Like this, But the ICRO guys that were there, like, look, I get it. They were trying to be polite and professional, but honestly, they didn't even have to let him go to court. If it was me, if I was there and I was leading that team, I'd be like, I'm just taking him. Like, this judge is being a pain. She's trying to distract us. I'm just taking him. You guys can't do anything about it.
This is the important thing here. The media, I believe, has successfully gaslit the Trump supporter base and conservatives into believing that due process means jury trial.
Oh yeah, due process might be no jury. It's just whatever the righteous legal path forward is the due process.
Exactly.
Whether that's trial or no trial.
So now I'm hearing from all these conservatives saying he shouldn't get due process. No. No, they should all get due process. What is fair? to someone who illegally entered the country for us to quickly send them back.
Honestly, his due process is you're under arrest for being here illegally.
argue
That's his due
exactly. If a
process
guy-
because he's already been removed. And like, again, this is why, and I don't blame people for not understanding this stuff because immigration law is very nuanced and complicated. So unless you worked in it, you're not going to know this stuff. But the reality is, like, for all these liberal talking heads, like, they don't know what they're talking about. I could debate any of them on this. Like, the guy shouldn't even have been in the courtroom in the first place and gotten this due process that they're crying about. Shouldn't have been here, was ordered removed, got an expedited removal, cooked.
I'd argue if a dude attacked a police officer with a gun and was threatening and going to shoot and kill the police officer, and the police officer shoots and kills the guy got his due process. That's exactly what was supposed to happen illegally to the guy if he was threatening the life of a police officer.
Not quite.
That's a form of due process.
Well, you know, I'm gonna half agree with Ian. I understand the point he's trying to make.
Yeah.
That are you treated fairly under the law? And if you're a dude who's threatening to murder a cop, and the cop, seeing a threat to his life, defends himself, you were treated fairly.
You're messing for a debate. Myron would debate me on this, but I don't debate the arrest on that judge, dude. I think that the arrest was probably okay. Or can we not come this way? Are you serious? Also, bro, these rockets suck. I think that there might be arguments against the arrest just from like an optics point of view, that they maybe shouldn't be arresting the judge because it kind of looks bad, but I don't think I would ever defend that judge's behavior there. So
Under the law, it's a tragedy, but you created that circumstance.
Yeah,
Nope,
and
does
I
not
also
mean
want to
jury
say
trial.
here too, it's very important when, and again, I'm speaking about this in immigration. This is why, like, when it comes to like the anti-Semitism stuff, that's a bit different because these people were legally here and they're kind of using some nuanced laws to try to justify removing them. But with these other individuals, like this guy Ruiz or whatever, like he was literally removed, and an immigration judge already deemed them as like, you know, you have a final, what's called a final order of deportation, which means you don't even get to get like you're cooked, like you get deported anytime an immigration enforcement officer encounters you. So that's kind of what it comes down to. But the problem is that since so few law enforcement actually have Title VIII authority or even understand it, they can't enforce it properly, or they try to stay away from it, which is why so many people go to places like Denver or these blue states because they won't even bother asking. And even if they know that they're illegal, they won't even try to call ICE or they won't hold detainers or any of this stuff, which is a big reason why we're in this problem in the first place, where these law enforcement agencies are scared to even touch Title VIII.
We're coming up on the age of people thinking that it's okay, because I think law doesn't mean good. You might have evil laws. The people that hid the Jews from the Nazis, for instance, might have been doing a righteous move, even though it was illegal. So you're going to see this conversation about, is it righteous to break these laws, to harbor illegal aliens? That's going to be the big conversation in the next 4 years.
It's already the conversation that's being had. There are people that are, there was I don't know if it was a senator or a congressman that was saying that it's the moral thing to do. The judge that was hiding the illegal immigrant, that he was doing something illegal, but it was the moral thing to do. They're already making those arguments.
Well, that is deeply runs through me as well, because I don't always adhere to the law. If it's an evil law, you have a moral, righteous duty to defy the law.
No, it's not a moral thing to hide someone that has come here illegally. That's immoral. Because
think about this though. What if the laws get changed and now it's illegal for some other thing that's like that really shouldn't be illegal?
You could come up with all kinds of hypotheticals, but the fact of the matter is, the people that have come here illegally, the intent is to dilute the voting power of the existing American citizens. It is not moral to allow them to stay and harm the American people by making their vote have less power.
And there's also a very illicit industry that literally runs off of this. It's called at USC 3024. It covers human smuggling and also harboring. Like, there's stash house operators all over the country that literally hold groups of illegal aliens there, and get paid a lot of money to hold them there. It's almost like it's actually more lucrative than drugs in a lot of ways.
Yeah, because you can when it comes to a child that's being sex trafficked, that child can be raped 10 times a day, as opposed to sell whatever some coke and they'll take.
Yeah, human smuggling is a very lucrative business. And the thing also that I need people to understand when it comes to like illegal aliens, a lot of people say, well, they're just trying to come here and find a better life. What people don't understand is, okay, let's assume they're coming in here and they're trying to live a better life. They're still funding and help.
Have you watched the legal video on the arrest? I'd be interested to hear your take on his interpretation of this. Feels like you didn't if you watched video from whatever. Everything I said before comes down to, bro, come on. How are you supposed to stop these fuckers? The rocket things might have been empty. It all comes down to whether or not any of the arrest was misrepresented. But I mean, if everything was set, and I mean, they cite a lot of witnesses, I think, in the initial whatever report. I mean, like, if everything was cited as it and happened as they said it was, I don't know. I don't have very much sympathy. But
helping operate an illicit multi-billion-dollar business that facilitates the illegal movement of people into the United States. Yeah. That also goes into other crimes as well.
People
you can't come to the United States without funding a human smuggling organization.
Yeah, people need to watch The Sound of Freedom again. Like, rewatch that.
Oh, that intro.
I watched it a couple weeks ago, and it is horrible. And there is far too much bad that comes with illegal immigration.
The Sound of Freedom.
To ever think that allowing them to stay is moral.
Well, I'm thinking about this girl.
If you send them out,
got deported.
That scene where Diesel says he quotes the Bible as he's catching the predator.
Yeah.
Jesus.
The guy that Tim Ballard used to be an HSI agent.
Yeah, of course.
He left a long time ago. It changed a lot since he's been on the job. But like, yeah, he used to literally be, I think, out of our Arizona office back in the day. So
when I'm going hard on the legal stuff, I just
Phoenix, maybe.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
He's great, by the way. We interviewed him on this
Yeah,
show.
yeah,
He's a phenomenal
cool guy.
human being. The girl that got deported for being anti-Semitic. Now that is like they just made that illegal.
The one out of Somerville, right?
I guess it's out of Somerville. They passed a law like a month ago or something.
Yeah,
about
that's
it?
crazy.
That's not what they used.
What did they do?
They cited their authority under the INA to deport anyone they deemed a national security threat. That's it.
It's I think the statute that they're using, Marco Rubio is using one where any alien that allows them to, that makes foreign policy more difficult for them is
we went over this bill because what happened was I got it wrong. I thought it was I can't remember the section number is 273 or something that states that they can at any time revoke a visa, and then we actually fact checked it and it was like 3 something of the INA that states.
I think it's a foreign policy one.
It was
under 237A of INA.
It's something like that. Yeah. The specific provision is if they pose a threat to U.S. national security.
And that's like if someone's like, I don't like the way Saudi Arabia is cutting people's hands off. They're like, well, we need Saudi Arabia to defend the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. So you're a national security threat by saying that out loud.
Now that example, right? I would agree with you because they're going.
So that's not a good thing for American free speech because you have the right to criticize Israel and Saudi Arabia and any of these.
Foreigners do.
Even if you're at war, I mean, technically you're supposed to still be allowed to at war.
Yeah, there's case law that protects foreigners.
I am not ever going to be okay with allowing foreign people to come to our country to dictate by protest what we do.
Bro, how are you of all people? What?
Listen, just think about
It is legal.
Think about
there's sorry, I'll let you finish. Now,
Well, just think about how the freedom of speech is actually protected in the Constitution. It says Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. Congress isn't making a law. They're saying we're revoking your visa.
Wow. Because of a law that's already on the books.
No, not
Well,
there's no law.
hold on. We got to clarify that because the interpretation of the First Amendment extends well beyond making a law.
But that's fine, fair enough. But what's being done is revocation of visa, and the Secretary of State can revoke for a bunch of different reasons.
But I want to say, like, I hear what you're saying. I don't care. The idea that we'd be like, by all means, come to the United States. It's a privilege to be here, not a right. Enjoy our luxurious economy and and all these wonderful things. And then you go, I am now going to protest against you. I'd say, get out of my house.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. It's not that they're protesting. It's because they're protesting against Israel. Like this girl, for example, that we're referring to, it was a Turkish girl. She got arrested by like 7 ICE agents, by the way, up in Somerville, Massachusetts. I think she goes to Tufts. She got arrested for writing an op-ed that was critical of Israel. She didn't mention anything about Hamas. She literally just talked about boycotts and how she doesn't like Israel and how they're killing people. And she got arrested for that. And I think that is a problem.
And the U.S.
even though she's not a U.S. citizen.
So we had this guy, Pisco Liddy. We were debating this.
Pisco.
And I asked him, is U.S. foreign policy aligned with Israel?
A lot of the times it is, or we try to force it to be.
It is.
For their benefit.
I mean, surface level it is.
Yeah,
okay.
sure.
Is it a threat to our foreign policy to allow college students to come in and start proselytizing, advocating, or protesting against one of our allies in the Middle East?
It's a threat to Israel, not to us.
It's a threat to our foreign policy.
Which is dictated by Israel. Which, I mean, if you want to make that
the point is simply this: we can get into the deep nuances, but that's not what matters. What matters is it's
love
legal under the
Israel.
law. I understand
That's
what you're
what
saying.
matters.
It's selective enforcement, and I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah.
Like just because some chick wrote an article, they're saying get out. Oh come on, there's a lot of articles written by a lot of people who are against our how many people have been deported because they're critical of the war in Ukraine? They came over here on a visa and then said we shouldn't be funding or being involved. They're not getting deported. So
Yeah, they're not, yeah.
Look what happened to Gonzalo Lira in Ukraine criticizing the Ukrainian
He got
government.
killed.
He got
Oh
killed.
my God.
The point
Rest in
I'm
peace.
making is,
Coach Red Pill.
if
Rip.
somebody came into my house,
Sure,
and
More
they
like
knocked on
Coach
my
Rip
door and
Pill.
said, "Hey, I see that you guys are having a pizza party. Can I come in?" I'd say, "You know what? You pitch in for the pizza. You can have some pizza and hang out with us, but you're not one of our roommates, so just be nice." They walk in, kick their shoes off, sit down, and then look at one of my roommates in the face and say, "That guy is a disgusting piece." I'd be like, "Get out of my house. You're a guest here. You have no right to come in here and say these things."
No, I see, but here's the thing: they kind of do, though, right? And there's case law out there that allows people that are foreign nationals to have, politically protected speech. And again, she was here legally. She came here. She's a student visa. Again, I don't agree with a lot of these liberals.
We
but
can revoke their visa for whatever reason. The INA literally.
though?
Yeah, but
The U.S. The Secretary of State
Secretary
has
of State.
unilateral
Oh, God.
authority under the INA to
God.
revoke any visa at any time at their own
Since
discretion.
how long has that been going on?
17 something. I guess.
yeah,
I don't know.
he's using he's using the statute under 237 to deport them because it makes it harder for him to, as Secretary of State, to run foreign policy. That's like the statute they're using. And look, if that's what he wants to try to use, you can make the argument that is completely antithetical to the First Amendment because there is case law out there that shows that, foreign nationals, Bridges versus Wixon, if I'm not mistaken, people could look that up. Very similar case where someone who was a communist or alleged to be a communist was protected. They were a green card holder. They're protected from being deported because of their political speech. And I would argue, you can make the
That's
similarity because communism back then was what terrorism is today, which is what they're trying to use, that she was a Hamas supporter, even though she didn't mention Hamas at all in her op-ed.
Right. They've been saying that these people are aligned with Hamas. I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah, they're just jumping to any conclusion.
You're critical of Israel. Say they're critical of Israel. They keep saying anti-Semitism. No, you're critical of Israel.
Yeah.
But so I understand what you're saying about selective enforcement. I still just, I'm
You just have an issue overall with people, whether it's anti-Semitism or whatever. Your thing is you just don't like them coming in and being able to say whatever they want to say as guests.
Well, it makes
That's
me
your
think of the
argument, right?
Japanese internment
Understand?
camps in World War II.
Let's
see your perspective.
So hold on. Let's clarify this.
Yeah, sure.
There are certain things you don't do as a guest. Right. So if I lived in a house with a bunch of
criticize
roommates and we were arguing over the
Israel.
dishes and who was supposed to be doing them, well, we all live here. We all pitch in. We're all paying rent. It's our problem to deal with. If some dude showed up and then every day, he's now sleeping on the couch. Okay, I don't know. We let him crash here, and now he's causing problems. He's basically yelling about what he's getting involved in the debate and the argument, and I'm like, dude, leave. You're a guest in this place. We can deport whoever we want. I believe that we should be focused on American interests, not Ukraine's interests, not Afghanistan, not Israel, not Sudan, not Taiwan, not Pakistan or India, not Tibet, whatever. Okay?
Yep.
We should secure our borders. We have to deal with this population crisis that we got. That means we need Americans to start focusing on American tradition, rebuilding our culture. And so if people come here...
But what's more American than free speech, Tim? That's my only pushback to that, where I see your perspective, but like what the rule that our guest is violating is the rule that the House is built upon, which is freedom of speech. It was our First Amendment. So my thing is, though I understand your perspective, I think her exercising that right, which is what we broadcast to everyone, which makes us better than everybody else, I think that's pretty
There
egregious.
are rules in this country for people who are here. We extend certain rights in certain circumstances, and there are different rules for people who are guests and on visas, such as due process for an American citizen involves a jury trial. Due process for a non-citizen does not
doesn't like
often
this
involve
one.
a jury trial. We don't go, hold on. The right to a speedy trial is in the Constitution. It is the bedrock of what it means to be American. Okay, then we're going to give every illegal immigrant a jury trial. No, we're not going to do that. If you are here to, I'll just put it this way, okay? I don't want to be funding Israel. I don't want to be involved in that conflict. I don't want to be involved in Ukraine. My issue is someone showed up to my house and started yelling at me about what I should be doing, and I said, get the out of my house.
Yeah, I think, but here's the thing: they're not even complaining about your house; they're complaining about your neighbor who you're friends with, and that's my problem. Like that's what Israel like to just
They're
make it more
complaining
analogous.
about what we're doing with an ally. And it's not their business. And the problem is, if we don't set a precedent on that, then anytime we have an adversary, there are people in the United States who are Iranian.
But this is a
We let
slippery slope that can lead us to problems in the future, though.
We let Iranians come into this country. And imagine
This is such a funny convo. They're like, Myron is arguing for these due process rights. But I would say it's probably heavily motivated by the fact that these people are probably being removed because the focus is on Israel. It's probably true, right? That Trump is kind of an Israeli simp because it's politically popular to be at that. So Myron is taking this big position against that. But Myron is also pretty educated on this because of his background in he worked for, was it the FBI or was it DHS? I think it was Department of Homeland Security. I think he worked on immigration-related cases. So he has the knowledge and he has the will to fight against it. But it's I feel like it's heavily motivated by the Jew stuff. Israeli stuff is very funny.
Imagine, you see what happens in Europe, okay? Remember when all the Turks started rising up throughout Europe with the Turkish flags, and Erdogan said, I'm going to unleash a flood on your countries unless you do what I want? This is the problem with allowing foreign ideologies to come in and get entrenched in your country. So we can all talk about the glories of the Constitution, and I'm going to say, great. So we can flush ourselves down the toilet as foreign adversaries and interests that are opposed to ours come in and start changing the shape of our country in ways we don't like. And now, what do we have? With all due respect to Ro Khanna, I think he's a good dude. I think he's wrong.
Uh-oh.
I believe that he's morally correct of his own worldview to fight for what he's fighting for as it pertains to immigration. Why? He is the children of immigrants. I believe he's an American citizen. I believe he was born here.
Well, I agree with you on immigration.
But let me tell you about Ro Khanna.
Let me tell you about
Ro Khanna. I believe his parents were immigrants and he was born here.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very nice guy. He's reasonable. He tries to communicate, and I can respect that. But because of where he comes from, his moral worldview is antithetical to the American moral tradition. I'm not saying he's a bad person. I'm not saying that he's doing anything criminal. I'm saying his moral worldview is correct based upon where he comes from. He says, my parents were immigrants. My parents fought hard to come to this country. I understand what they want and why they want it. I'm going to fight for those values. Well, I was born in America with multiple generations going back hundreds of years, save my grandmother who came from Korea. I have all of these family...
Wait, okay. Well, okay.
Members coming hundreds of years who fought in a revolutionary war, who fought in a civil war, and whose moral traditions have landed with me.
On which side?
And so what I say is, I understand, Ro, why you want to fight for illegal immigrants, but you came to this country, your parents came here, and you are now a citizen. You have access to everything we offer you because we are nice, we are good people. But when you start advocating for non-citizens, people not from this country, this creates two worldviews that are at odds with each other, and there's no off-ramp. People in this country who are saying, if you're not a citizen, so what? You can live here. And what ends up happening? You get, whether it's whatever anyone wants to say about the Haitians, you get reports from the locals that they were eating cats.
Oh my
Is it
God,
wrong
we're
to
still
eat cats? Well,
believing
people in
this?
America don't take kindly to that, but in Haiti, they do eat cat. You see, there's a cultural clash. In Dearborn, Michigan, you get reports of female genital mutilation. Well, a lot of people don't take kindly to that. You get in the Somali community in Minnesota similar stories. So the people who are born and bred and raised in America, who are sitting beneath trees their ancestors planted, our focus on what we are going to build for this country is rooted in a long-standing American tradition. We all know the lesson of the Native Americans. The left can bring up all they want. We get it. Colonization destroys civilizations and communities and all that stuff. We don't want that to happen to us. The simple version is this. If we prioritize the speech rights of non-citizens and people who are guests in this country, if we prioritize the rights of illegal immigrants, this country will evaporate.
I don't think you need to prioritize their rights. You just got to protect them.
No, yeah, I agree with you on that, Tim. But my thing is, she's legally here. She's making speech not even against America, rather Israel, and she's being deported for that. Like,
I get it, but
we don't threatening our trade routes in the Middle East with.
Sorry, you're going to say something.
But look, we don't protect all rights for foreign people that are here. You can't buy a gun if you're not an American citizen. So the idea that we protect all rights, and the Supreme Court
as a green card holder,
Supreme Court has said that the Second Amendment is not a second class.
I'm just going to say this. You know, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but like it's a super chat from this dude, Blackest Panther, saying,
"He's mad.
Why are you, Tim? You're logically inconsistent. Why are you more likely to be deported for burning an Israeli flag than an American flag? Yo, I don't care about your retarded obsession with Israel.
Yeah, it's not that.
Shut up, you Israel obsessed morons.
It's about the trade
I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. Stop. I don't care if it's Ukraine. I don't care if it's Israel. I don't care if it's Afghanistan. I don't care where you're from. I don't care if you're from Japan. If you're from Japan, you come to this country and they start protesting and declaring that Americans should change our behavior for you, get out. And you know, I got to be honest. When I hear people defending non-citizens coming in and trying to dictate American governmental policy, they have no right to do this. And then they say, well, but it's because Israel. Okay, I get it. You're obsessed. Your brain is rotted from your skull because the only thing you think about is Israel. I care about all the countries that are trying to negatively impact the United States. That have we've got to deal with Venezuela sending people from their prisons. Now I know it's semantic. They're not literally taking people out of prisons, putting them on a bus and saying go to America. They're releasing them and saying get out of the country, go there instead. We don't want you. And then when they come here, Donald Trump says, we want to send these Venezuelan gangs and prisoners, former prisoners, cons and criminals back to Venezuela. They say no. So what does he do? He cuts a deal with El Salvador. These are criminals from Venezuela. You take them. We don't want them. The Democrats then say, we're going to keep them here. And then you super chat, but Israel.
Democrats.
This is why our country is being screwed over and mercilessly beaten. And it's why we're facing these catastrophes that we're facing, okay? Because of the myopic view of so many people. I do these debates and conversations, and they're focused on one super stupid, let me put it this way. During Occupy Wall Street, one of the most amazing moments was when some guy stood up during the General Assembly and he screamed out, what is wrong with you people? The only thing we need to focus on is fracking. It is the center of all of our problems. And I thought, my God, there are people that live in bubbles. They only see one thing. That's the only thing they care about. Me, I got a bubble. I do. It's America. So if it's Venezuela, if it is Ukraine, if it is Russia, Iran, China, Israel, or otherwise, and they're negatively impacting us, I'm going to say, stop. I don't want to be involved in this. People need to focus on on the issue, and that is, we have a system of governance. We have a body politic. The American people, for hundreds of years, have built and they've planted trees whose shade they know they will not sit beneath. Blood and treasure sacrificed to make the greatest nation this world has ever seen. Over the past 30 years, our border has been porous, our manufacturing base eroded and stripped away, and now Donald Trump is doing what he thinks he can, and I say thinks because we don't know how it's going to play out, whether it be tariffs, securing the border, to try and bring back some semblance of a cohesive nation. I will just say it that way. I don't care if they're anti-Israel. I don't care if they're anti-EU, whatever it is. I don't care if they're pro-gun or anti-gun. People from foreign countries that come here as guests that want to get up in our business and dictate what we should do, I think, and depending on the severity, for sure, get out. And I'm not going to cut a special pass for all the Canadians, each and every one of them, who keep coming to the United States and then running political shows telling us what to do. With all due respect, I'll cut them some slack.
Fucking Canadians.
They're our neighbor to the north. They're directly on our border, and we have a shared culture. I understand why they're fleeing Canada, but I will say this as much as many other people have said it. You've got British people like John Oliver, and you've got a lot of Canadians, even conservatives, coming from Canada to the United States and then telling us what to do with our government. And I think there's a problem with it. So if they decide we're going to kick you out, I'm going to be like,
yeah, well, again, just I think it's very important because the only country that has this influence, and I know you say, hey, well, why Israel, why Israel? The problem is that Israel has undue influence on our country. There's no other country where we are literally legislating criticism of them, like to deport people for criticizing it. Like someone can burn an American flag on a college campus and be totally fine, but if they burn an Israeli flag, anti-Semitism, they get deported. So I think that's why people are singling out Israel, because we dictate a lot of our laws based on them, and that's the problem here. Now,
I agree. I agree. Still,
so they have okay, fair, but they have undue influence in our political structure, and to the point where they're legislating things to their benefit that we don't even get to enjoy as Americans, but we're doing for their behalf. So with this woman, she's legally here. She wrote an op-ed against Israel, critical of Israel, and she's getting deported for that. Versus if she had wrote that op-ed against the United States, she would still be here. And I think that's the problem that people have.
I completely agree it's a problem. I say criticize it fully, but that is no excuse for allowing someone to come to our country and try and dictate our foreign policy.
So I'm talking about, okay, so we've got the Middle East. Israel's our eastern bulwark, our nuclear warhead to protect the Suez. We've got Egypt in the west. We've got Saudi Arabia's puppet states. If people threaten that hegemony and we lose that canal. That's what they're fighting. That's what they're trying to stop. It's similar to why I brought up the Japanese internment camps during the war. When you're in wartime, which we have been in the Ukraine, you take people. They did. I don't know the extent of what they did to the Japanese
states.
Ian,
citizens.
you are correct about the Suez and the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea and all of that stuff, and I don't care.
Well, I'm explaining why it's happening.
No, I'm not saying I don't care about what you're saying. I'm saying I don't care about the Suez. I'm saying you are correct.
I wonder about
U.S. interests in this region. Why we bomb the Houthis is because we're so concerned about global trade, and this is why this is why we're allied with Egypt. We're dumping billions of dollars in Egypt because we want
Jordan too. To basically pay them
and
all this
Saudi
money
Arabia.
to play. Yeah, we basically pay all these Arab countries, especially Jordan, Egypt, to play nice with Israel. And I do think it's important. A lot of people say obsessed with Israel, obsessed with Israel. I think it's not necessarily obsessed with Israel. Rather, we have a foreign country that has an enormous amount of influence and power in our country, where we give them certain. We roll out the red carpet for them in certain situations that we wouldn't even roll out for ourselves. And I think that's where people are having issues.
My point that I'm trying to bring up is.
And by the way, when it comes to immigration, I agree with you. I'm even further right on that. I think we need to have immigration moratorium. I think we need to stop letting people in. I think we need to keep America a certain demographic majority. I'm even further right when it comes to immigration. But my problem is that when people start to infringe on the First Amendment because of a foreign nation, that's my biggest gripe.
The liberal economic. Listen to what Donald Trump talks about. He talks about the Gilded Age. He talks about the end of the 1800s. The liberal economic order was created to police the world, and they still want to, and they're addicted to it. Even people in the Trump admin with these strikes on the Houthi rebels in Yemen. It's an addiction. It is a fear. If we do not intervene, global trade will be negatively impacted, and the global economy can be harmed by Iran, who will gain more power, and the Houthi rebels. China will get involved. They're already trying to take the lithium deposits in Afghanistan. We can't allow them to do it. We have to be in control. Why? Why do we have to be in control? Now, I'm deeply concerned about unipolar Chinese Communist Party planet. I don't want that either. But the United States was prosperous and powerful before World War II. There's a reason why the U.S. got involved in World War I and World War II. And you can argue they were bad reasons.
Just to be clear, the United States was absolutely not considered like a global huge superpower pre-World War I. That is not true. Nobody gave that much of a fuck about the United States, but okay.
The reason for World War I, I think, Trump brought up, why were we even involved? Because we have allies. We basically dragged into it to support them. World War II, relatively similar, but Pearl Harbor, we get it. The U.S. was very, very powerful before these wars, before the existence of the liberal economic order. I am confident that if we just backed off and said, we don't care about your canal and your trade, because U.S. trade doesn't go through that area, you deal with it.
The problem
Somebody
is
would.
They got long-range bombers now, so we can't
they?
just huddle.
Who is they, though?
The Russians and the Chinese,
So what?
and the Indians and the Americans and the Israelis.
Yes.
So if you just huddle and play isolationist now, they can hit you from orbit.
No one is saying isolation. That's an excuse. What I'm saying is we don't need to be the world police.
Yeah, I agree with
there
you.
has to be
I
a
think
world
that's a big problem. That's a big issue. But see, here's the problem. Israel has forced us to almost be the world police because now we have to be involved in all these Middle Eastern affairs because of Israel.
They were definitely a superpower, but limited to the Western Hemisphere. I don't think anybody gave a fuck about the Americas or whatever prior to World War I. I don't know how much. I mean, I guess there was colonizing of South America going on, but in terms of the United States being seen as like a major player or that could intervene in European politics pre-World War I don't think the United States was seen that way. I think World War I was the first time where everybody was like, oh, holy shit, the United States has some serious shit that they can bring.
To allow them to
It's not because
maintain
of
their
Israel's
support.
Saudi Arabia, it's because of Egypt.
It's because of the liberal economic order. Israel's part of it, but it's this order of nations. It's the British Empire. It's all these things, the Commonwealth, whatever you want to call it, the transition of the British Empire into this new organism. It's a technocratic, militaristic hegemony, basically.
We would not have been in all the foreign wars in the Middle East had it not been for Israel.
That's a gross over-exaggeration.
You don't agree?
No, I think you hyper-focus on just Israel, ignoring all the other factors. I think it's fair to say that Israel is a very strong factor in our involvement in the Middle East.
There's always going to be other
100%.
factors, but they're by far the most prominent and the biggest reason why we've had
Saudi
the
Arabia
war.
is.
You think Saudi Arabia is?
Yeah, because of their control of the flow of oil. If Saudi Arabia dumps oil into the market, they destroy our economy. So the U.S. basically goes there and sucks the feet of the Saudi princes, saying, please don't flood the market with oil. Israel doesn't do that. Israel begs us for money, and then we give them to build weapons. So if Saudi Arabia and the OPEC nations could destroy the petrodollar overnight, and so Trump and all these presidents are constantly going there and saying, please, for the love of God, don't ruin our hegemony.
I think every war, like the Iraq War, was for Israel. Us going into Afghanistan, the entire war on terror was basically waged, and only Israel benefited from it. I don't think Saudi Arabia benefited as nearly
the Iraq War?
From the Iraq War. Israel benefited from the Iraq War.
The Iraq War and the Afghan War are for there's obviously a bunch of reasons.
Sure.
The principal reason is we're surrounding Iran. But our involvement, our desire, I say our because not mine, but the U.S.'s desire to go to war with Iran is not because of Israel.
100%. It's one of the main reasons.
Israel wants us to go to war with Iran for sure, but U.S. interest in going to war with Iran coincides with that.
Look, what benefit do we get from going to war with
We
Iran?
want
the Suez.
Well, it's not the
total control of the trade route. Is
Iran?
No, it's not the Suez.
Iran is a threat.
The Suez. I mean, I can't even steal my that. I'm sorry.
In the region, and we want full control of oil in the region, and we want to appease the Saudis who control large
Saudi
amounts of
Arabia
oil.
is a major reason why we have the posture towards Iran that we do.
No, it's mostly Israel. Like Iran and Saudi Arabia, yes, they've had problems, of course, but
it's
I would
the
say
Shia and the Sunni stuff. You know,
Was that-
like it's the Shia and the Sunni beef.
Yeah, but that is not as much of the reason as
I mean,
Israel is by far the biggest enemy to Iran. It's because Iran's the only country in the Middle East.
Why is the U.S. engaged in hostility with Iran because of Israel?
Why? Because Iran is the only country that challenges Israel's hegemony in the Middle East because they have the ability.
Okay, now I got to pause because that's circular. What you're saying is Israel is the reason why we're involved with Iran because Iran is a threat to Israel. That doesn't explain why Israel is dictating U.S. be involved with Iran. You're just saying that Israel is threatened by Iran. We get this.
Yes, and that
now met with
Oh
Trump,
my God,
and he
Israel's
said we want to do
warrior?
joint strikes, and Trump said no.
Yes, because he understands that going to war would not benefit us whatsoever.
I
However,
thought Israel controls our interests, and it's why
they absolutely do. They absolutely do. But here's the thing: he's got to obviously weigh it out. Like, okay, they put me in, right? Because Miriam Medicine and all the other Zionist backers, etc. They put me in. Like, I gotta appease them enough. I'm giving them 2,000-pound bombs. I'm allowing them to continue to wage war in Gaza. I'm allowing them to kind of go wild all over the Middle East, etc. But going to war with Iran might not be a good idea because they can actually hurt us economically. Now, of course, we would win the war with Iran, but Iran has the capability of making life significantly harder. They can shut down the Strait of Hormuz. They can launch missiles into Saudi Arabia and to the UAE, hurt our allies, destroy these oil locations and these strategic standpoints.
They're arming the Houthis. They're arming.
Sure.
The Iraqi insurgent groups. I forgot their name, and they're launching missiles at Americans.
Sure.
The Suez is probably one of the largest reasons. Appeasing the Saudis is a large reason. The Saudis want the Suez to flow properly because they have a lot of interest in that. Russia sends their fuel through the Black Sea, through the Bosphorus, into the Mediterranean, through the Suez to make it down into the Arabian Sea and into the Indian Ocean. So this canal is of vital interest to all of the global powers. This region.
And this is why he's rethinking war.
It is not
This is why he's
just
rethinking it.
because Israel.
No, Israel wants the war, and I'm saying
spice
a
must
big
flow.
reason why
True.
we have the issues that we have with Iran is because of Israel. That's what I'm saying. Saudi Arabia plays a part, but I would argue that Israel plays a more significant part because they've been trying to topple them and get rid of their nuclear program for decades. They've done false flags. They've done a bunch of stuff to try to get us into war. Luckily, it hasn't worked, but Israel is one of the biggest reasons why we have the posture that we have with Iran.
I think it's more that that's a modern.
And the reason why we're not getting into war was what I explained before, where it would economically hurt us a lot.
I do want to jump to the next story, but I just want to say I understand the point you're making.
Sure.
And I think we're largely saying like which geopolitical factor is playing a more significant role.
What time period do you start? Because the British
Okay,
mandate for
yes,
Palestine.
Ian, I get it.
you know?
We're moving on. Okay, I'm trying to wrap up the segment because we're talking in circles about foreign war and policy. Okay. So
We can move to the next topic.
I'm trying to respectly say I get what you're saying.
No, we can.
Disagree.
We don't have to agree to disagree. We can
just-
agree to disagree.
Let's just jump to
It's
the
totally
next story.
cool. I think the people enjoy the conversation. That's what matters.
Right. I completely agree.
People love it. So,
but I just think like we've been on for like 30 minutes
we can
on
move to
one
the next
subject.
thing, dude. Yeah, we can move on, brother.
So we'll jump onto this next one, and we'll maybe talk a little bit. I don't want to just keep.
Yeah, because there's an uncensored part too, right? Calling part on this.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Let's go to this story from the
Move
New
on.
York Times. Trump would not concede MS-13 letters were digitally added. The White House declined to explain why Trump did not appear to realize the photograph he held up on social media had been altered. This is. Oh,
I think Tim tweeted out like liberal dipshits actually believe that this photo is real or something. Tim actually tweeted that out right before Trump. Yeah, started screaming about how real that picture was. Rip.
for the video. I'm actually surprised by this. That's interesting.
It's on
New
my
York
Twitter
Times
page if you want it.
is not showing the video where Trump is debating. I believe the guy's name was Terry Moran. And Trump appears to genuinely believe that the letters MS and the numbers 1 and 3 are tattooed on his hand. Terry Moran is arguing it's symbolic. Here's why the story's fascinating. And I'll pull it up in a second. I thought the New York Times would have had the video. I can't say I'm surprised they're not showing it because then you'd realize there's some nuance to this.
Okay.
Now that Trump appears to genuinely believe that photo he held up has MS-13 was actually part of the tattoo, and maybe he didn't. I don't know. I think Trump thought that. All of a sudden, the liberals who argued that Trump was showing an altered tattoo, they're now all of a sudden realizing, just as if they knew the whole time, that it was actually just a key representing the symbols. Terry Moran said those symbols were on the picture to show what the tattoos represent, basically. And Trump's like, no. What do you mean interpretable? No. MS-13. The liberals argued when Trump held that up, he was intentionally showing tattoos that were fake, despite the fact it was an obvious paintbrush, not even a Photoshop. Now they're acting like they knew the whole time that's what Trump was trying to do, but Trump believed it. Ha ha! That's the hypocrisy of these people. That's the idiocy or the hypocrisy. They know they're lying.
Wow.
But you tweeted out the video, you said?
Yeah, I tweeted out the video and the picture in reference where Trump's holding up a picture of the guy's hand. It shows the 4 symbols like the skull, the marijuana leaf, and then up above you can tell there's a like a superimposed MS-13 on his knuckles that obviously aren't tattooed on his knuckles.
Let me play the video for you guys. I got it.
Then they look, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute
But
over
wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
He had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry. Terry.
He did not have the letter MS13.
It says MS13.
That was Photoshopped.
So let me that was Photoshop. Terry, you can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You know, you're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. But I picked you, Terry. You're not being very nice. He had MS13 tattooed.
We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture.
And you think it's Photoshop? Well,
here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine,
No,
sir.
Terry,
I want to get to Ukraine.
Terry. He had MS as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's
he was
fake
photographed
news.
in El Salvador, they aren't there. But let's just go. They aren't there when he's in El Salvador.
You know,
take a look at the
but they're
photograph.
there now, right?
No,
but they're
in
now.
your picture.
Terry.
Ukraine, sir.
He's got MS13 on his knuckles.
Terry.
Okay?
We'll take a look.
You do such a disservice.
We'll take a look at
Why
that,
don't you
sir.
just say, yes, he does?
So we're doing these adversarial interviews.
No, this is great chemistry.
Democrats never do. Like they never. Kamala didn't even touch until the end of the campaign. Fox. I think who'd she do? Someone at Fox. I forget.
I gotta throw shade at Terry Moran. He keeps trying to cut Trump off as part of the problem.
Yep.
I personally believe Trump did not understand that the paper he was given was showing a legend saying the marijuana leaf means M.
You can pull it up too. It's on the same post on my Twitter page. I posted a picture as the first comment below the video.
Yeah, they endless amount of shareability. This is with every gang, Bloods, Crips, etc.
So listen, here's what I think happened. I think somebody in the administration took this image of his tattoos, Obregon Garcia's marijuana smiley, cross, and skull. They clearly used paintbrush, not Photoshop. It looks like paintbrushed, if you ask me. And then put the MS, the 1-3, showing that's what it represents. I think they went to Trump and said, these were the tattoos that he had, and Trump misunderstood, wasn't paying attention, and now genuinely believes that Trump is wrong, and it is a gaffe.
Yeah, and he should.
It's a mistake. No, he shouldn't apologize to Terry Moran. Terry Moran, in my opinion, is the one who handled this poorly as the interviewer. Donald Trump said, do you want me to show you the photo?
Yes. He should
have said, yes, let's clear this up, because I don't want people to think I'm treating you unfairly, and it's best we get to the truth on this one.
It's a good opportunity for Trump to apologize to this guy publicly, because first of all, they have great chemistry. They should do more interviews together. But if he apologizes, because firstly, the thing about Trump that's great is that he's real. If he makes a mistake, he admits it, at least from what I know. Maybe not every time, but when he does it, people love him more. And if he grabs some humility in this, is like, I made a mistake. And I'm sorry about that.
Here's what
you should clarify, because a lot of people don't understand that gangs often do this, where they use symbols to not make it obvious that they're a member of a gang, because they don't want to be identified by the gang units in these jails, etc. You know, it's very common.
Okay, he has way more experience with gang-related anything than me. Okay, I totally would defer to him. But I will say that it immediately betrays any kind of common sense that, why did you get this tattoo? To show that I'm in a gang. What does it mean? No one knows because it's a secret. Then what the fuck was the point of the tattoo then? Okay, all right.
All gangs do this.
Trump may argue he was speaking figuratively. I don't believe that. I think Trump genuinely thought the MS-13 was actually on the hand. But I would not be surprised, because there's going to be
gangs do that all the time. I don't believe you. You're telling me that there are gangs that are huge gangs, that are well-known gangs, that have top secret tattoos that everybody has to get, and nobody else knows what these tattoos mean? I'm sorry, I just don't believe it. I would need to see some kind of like proof of that nobody knows what the tattoo, like it's a top secret tattoo that everyone in this gang has to get, but nobody else but the gang knows what it's like. I'm not buying that one, Chief. I would need evidence to that somehow.
A lot of diehard Trumpers who are arguing Trump doesn't mean, he doesn't speak literally. Like, this has been a common thing. The media takes him literally on everything. Yep. Trump is saying, clear as day, the marijuana means S. What are you talking about? It's clearly on his hand. And the reporter is saying, no, it wasn't. It's interpretable. And Trump could be construed as arguing, interpretable, the marijuana, the smiley, the cross, and the skull is clearly MS-13.
But he's like...
But I don't believe that.
Yeah, he's like, literally, there's an M, an S, a 1, and a 3. Literally, Terry, listen, there's an M on his finger. He's like blatant.
Because what Trump should have done was clarified that, look, it doesn't literally mean MS-13. It means these are the symbols, and let me explain to you why, so the American public will get it. But obviously, the Democrats are trying to say, look, he's so stupid. They put Photoshop, and he thinks it's MS-13.
Well, but I think Trump genuinely thinks the M and the literal letters are on his hand.
Oh, okay. You think that he actually doesn't understand the symbology?
Yeah,
right now, but
symbolism.
when he did this interview,
symbolism. Sorry.
Boondock Saints reference.
Yeah, symbolism.
Symbolism. What I think happened is Trump's a busy guy. He doesn't pay attention to the minutia.
Yeah.
When the Obregon Garcia story was happening, someone in his administration, probably an intern or an aide, made this Photoshop showing what the marijuana smiley, the cross, and the skull meant. Handed it to Trump and said, "Can we get a picture of this so you can show the gang
listen
tattoos?"
to the endless
Trump looks at it briefly and goes, "Wow,
my
MS-13,"
God.
and walks away.
Yeah.
He then sits down, and this is I will say it, no problem. This is a stupid gaffe on the part of the president. But I understand he's a busy guy, and
And he's
everybody.
old too. That's another thing that's important. These older guys like can't see, they don't know the difference between photos. They could barely turn on a computer or use a computer. Like,
oh, dude, if you want to talk about cognitive, like quality cognitive, if you're going to make fun of Joe Biden, you cannot let this guy slide on this and double down.
This
on
is not an issue with
cognition. If he's going to pretend like he didn't know, that is like demented. Like
I think
you
we
have
should
to
clarify.
acknowledge. Let's do it.
Uh-oh.
Well, I'm just saying, you call out humans for cognitive, mistakes,
Ian,
regardless.
let
of
me
who they
ask you
are.
something. Do you know what I say whenever anyone asks me about anything at this company?
What?
Like
I don't know.
No, that's close. That is one of them. Okay, anybody in the room right now, when someone says like, "Hey Tim, I need to get a new microphone," what's my response?
Talk to the
It's a long
microphone
since I
order
talked
guy.
You delegate the authority to whoever it is.
To who?
Allison.
Yeah, Allison.
So what do I say?
See what Allison thinks.
Ask Allison.
Yeah. And then
So,
I got her 90
when
emails
someone-
queued up. I'm like,
when-
oh God,
when-
sorry, Allison.
So when someone comes to me and they're like, "Hey, we ordered those speakers. Do you know if they came?" I go, "Huh." I have no idea what you're talking about.
And this is the thing is, because it's so high profile, I would say this is a low level thing, but because it's such a high profile case, I think people would have expected that he knew exactly what he was looking at.
Here's my issue. If you want to mock Trump because he thought that crude paintbrush was real, please do so. Donald Trump, this is a gaffe. There is no reality where Trump is going to be gaffe-free. He's a human being. He tweeted "Kafifi." Everybody knows. He sausaged fingers Twitter.
Epic.
It's funny. Trump made a mistake, okay? Mock him for his mistake. It's fine. What my issue is, when Trump initially held up that photo, we all knew what he was doing. And liberals were arguing that was a real tattoo. Let me try and say this one more time. In that photo, what did I just pull? I pulled that. You had the image. I think I pulled up. When Trump held this image up right here, all of the media argued that this crude Times New Roman was a literal tattoo on his
Maybe
hand.
he read that in the
but
news.
Trump had photoshopped it. They said Trump posts altered image.
I guarantee you Donald Trump does not use Photoshop.
Now that Trump made this gaffe, all the liberals came out of the woodwork and they were like, "Ha ha! We knew the whole time that it wasn't a real tattoo."
So I think let him laugh, and that's why Trump, if he acknowledges it, owns the mistake, and apologizes, like laugh as much as you want. He's the bigger man. That's a huge talent.
He doesn't need to apologize.
Need to, but he's going to look like a great guy if he does.
Well, I do think there's also a reality where Trump says something later on. Like, look, Trump was asked by Goldberg about whether he's going to run for a third term. He said no. He was like, "Look, I know a lot of people, they chant 3 and they chant a third, but it's not something we're actually going to do." And he was like, "We're just, he's like, it's a goof, basically."
They're like throwing people off the scent. They're doing so
No,
much.
I mean, Trump did the Trump 2028 because it's funny and he knows people are going to buy it. It's a troll.
And maybe
When Trump was legitimately asked by Goldberg and the Atlantic journalists, he said, no, like, very calmly said, "We're not doing that. We're not going to look at it." He's like, maybe I'd like to, but it's very hard, so I don't think it's going to happen. It's not something we're pursuing. We're not looking into it at all. In this regard, the issue is Trump made a mistake. Terry Moran, as a journalist, decided to be adversarial and argue with him instead of saying, "This is an opportunity for us to get to the truth. Why don't you pull up that photo right now and let's take a look?" Then he would have looked at it and said, "Mr. President, do you believe that M was actually on his hand?" And Trump would have said, "Yes." And then he would have said, "Can we get someone from your administration? This is an image that was created to represent what those symbols mean." That would have been tremendous for all of us. That would have been tremendous.
For the ratings and for
so
everything.
Trump made a mistake. He can own that. I got no problem saying it. Trump's made a lot of mistakes. Trump launched 59 Tomahawk missiles into Syria, a much worse mistake. But the journalist,
I don't think he'll admit it, though. Trump is very proud. I don't think he'll admit it. He's just going to let it kind of continue on.
Trump sometimes makes fun of himself a lot.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know about this. I don't know if he'll say, "Oh, it was a mistake."
Hold on. Here's another reality. Another reality is Trump is intentionally lying.
Yeah, that was something people said that. They're like, he's playing 9D chess. I'm like, I don't know. He said it like 5 times in the interview.
Look, I guarantee you, Democrats are like, "Haha, Trump thought it was real." I'll say, "No, he knew it was fake. He's lying to you." What are they going to say? "No, he's not. He's telling the truth." Oh, he's telling the truth. There is, I believe, my personal opinion is Trump genuinely made a mistake. He thought that photo was real. It's okay. People make mistakes. It's a stupid mistake to make, but whatever. However, there is a possibility Trump is saying this because he knows there's a lot of people who aren't going to check. And then he says, "This is why people don't trust you anymore." And there are going to be a lot of Trump supporters who are like, "Yup, he literally had MS-13 in his hand, and the journalist lied."
Yeah, I mean, it's which is why I think that he might not. I think he should come out and clarify, say, "Hey, look, this was a mistake. It was symbolism." But I don't think he will. He's just going to kind of let it die down and move on.
By the way, there was
not a big deal.
at least
I don't
3
think he's
amazing
gonna.
clips
I
in
don't
this
think
interview.
he's going to feel like I don't need to clarify this.
Yo, this interview was amazing. Can we pull up the more fun stuff?
Again, I give him credit for doing these adversarial interviews because the Democrats don't do this.
Here we go from Deadline.
Biden on Fox, never.
Let's grab the story. We got this from Deadline. Frankly, I never heard of you. A testy Donald Trump tussles with Terry Moran during contentious ABC News interview. That was great. But then we have this. Listen to this. This is gold.
Do you think the reputation of the United States has gone down under your presidency? No, I think it's gone way up, and I think we're a respected country again. We were laughed at all over the world. We had a president that couldn't walk up a flight of stairs, couldn't walk down a flight of stairs, couldn't walk across a stage without falling. We had a president that was grossly incompetent. You knew it, I knew it, and everybody knew it, but you guys didn't want to write it because you're fake news. All right. Thank you. By the way, ABC.
No, wait. The best part. Listen to what Terry Moran says.
All right. I knew it, but you guys didn't want to write it because you're fake news.
All right. Thank you.
And by the way, ABC's one
He
of
thanked him.
Yeah.
He said thank you.
the worst. I have to be honest with you.
You know what? That's the only reason he gave this interview. Now that I think about it, he doesn't want to tell them to their face, you guys are fake news and you guys suck. That's the only reason he did this interview.
Terry Moran said, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Jeez, bro.
He was like, I hate ABC. Let me get the guy that I'll have the least problems with.
It's almost
just
like
so I
he's
can say that
scared
you guys
about
are
getting
fake news.
fucking
You can tell-
sued.
anytime he gets a chance to make fun of Biden,
Or
which is
having
hilarious,
their
by the
parent
way,
company
he takes
merger
it and then
destroyed.
he wanted to tell ABC that they suck to their face.
Yeah, and he should.
That's the only reason he did it.
It was the right thing for Donald Trump to do. The media has been derelict in their duty for they were derelict in their duty for 4 years. They covered for Joe Biden when he was incapable of doing his job. So
you know, it's crazy because prior to Trump coming into office, like politics wasn't this interesting and fun and funny. Like I remember when before Trump came in, right? If you look at the Mitt Romney and Barack Obama debate, they were so posh, great decorum, so polite, really didn't insult each other, right? And then you go fast forward to like Trump versus Hillary and then Trump versus Biden, and he's like saying like, well, I don't know what he said, or he's saying like, I would lock her up. Like he completely, as much as people you could hate or love Trump, what you got to admit though is that he revolutionized politics and definitely made it more interesting and entertaining.
The biggest zing in the Obama and Romney debate was when Obama said the 1980s want their foreign policy back because Romney correctly said that Russia was a geopolitical rival. And then the biggest zinger in the Hillary Clinton Trump debate was definitely because you'd be in jail.
Yeah, you'd be in jail when you said about the tax breaks. Yeah,
I do want to interject a little bit. You said they were derelict in their duty. They were complicit.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Derelict is actually, I understand what you were trying to deride them, and I respect that. But derelict is a cover-up.
They were complicit. Yeah,
they were complicit.
Totally true.
Joe Biden. There's this video. I got to pull it up again. It was it's so good. It's so good. How do I find it? It's
just the way he always makes fun of him. What was that? Was that a CPAC you cooked him for like 30 minutes? Like made fun of Joe Biden for like it's just funny because like before Trump coming into politics, it was like completely a big no-no.
Yeah.
So personally insult your political rival, like it was frowned upon, right? Even if you hated each other, there was like a certain level of decorum. He completely got rid of that, and it's hilarious now.
Let me play. I'm going to play this clip for you guys. We're doing a best of. Here's a best of Joe Biden.
Best of.
You got the vaccination?
Epic time.
Are you okay? I mean, you seem no, it works. Or or the mom and dad, or the neighbor, or when you go to church, or when you're no. I really mean it. There are trusted interlocutors. Think of the people. If your kid wanted to find out whether or not there's a man on the moon or whatever, something, or whether those aliens are here or not. Who are the people they talk to beyond the kids who love talking about it?
You know what's crazy? You know what's crazy, dude? Like if you watch,
Wait, there are so many things that you could clip Biden for to make fun of him. Doesn't that make sense? Isn't he saying? It sounds like he's saying something about like if there are conspiracy theories abound and you're not going to talk about them, he's going to talk to the guy that loves conspiracy theories. That was actually like a coherent thought. Wait, what?
If your kid wanted to find out whether or not there's a man on the moon or whatever, something, or whether those aliens are here or not, who are the people they talk to beyond the kids who love talking about it?
You know what's crazy? You know what's crazy, dude? Like if you watch, speaking of going back in time, if you watch Biden, I think it was against Sarah Palin back in like 2008 or something like that. Completely different guy.
Yeah.
Completely, sound mind, very good, good speaker, sharp as hell. Like when you look at how he used to speak and how he used to be to now, it's like, is this even the same guy?
My theory is that Biden's planning on retiring to play poker. And so he's created this public persona of infirmity and ineptitude.
People are be pushing him all day.
He's at the table, and he's like, "Oh, what do you mean? Hey, sir, you're king." And then they're like, "This guy's nothing."
I called. Too late, I guess.
I guess I'm calling, and they're like, "I got you. I got trips." And he goes, "Oh, I got a full house."
Yep. Like when
wait a minute.
You ever see the episode of The Fresh Prince where his Uncle Phil pretends he can't play pool? He's like, I don't know what I'm doing here. and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, I'm a pool shark. Now I'll say he made the bet. I was like, oh, and you start cooking him.
All these people in the media, they were like, look, behind closed door, Joe Biden's better than he's ever been. Joe Scarborough said this version of Joe Biden is the best version he's ever been. So when we played this video for you.
So you could believe that had you not heard him speak before. Because I'm telling you, a lot of people forget. He was vice president under Obama. He was super sharp. Now you look at him, you're like, what the hell is this?
But this is the issue.
Do you watch the new Doug Polk video about Twitch streamers getting scammed by ACR? Nope.
Chuck Todd recently came out and said, the narrative that the media missed this story is a right-wing manufactured narrative. It didn't happen. Chuck Todd is developmentally disabled. Because if he watched this clip and concluded that Joe Biden is of sound mind, then he's developmentally
You want to know when was
$30 million Twitch scam.
$30 million in unpaid debts, contracts breached, promises broken,
oh my
and
God.
multiple lawsuits.
What?
Shocking accusations of
What?
cheating in poker games, corporate fraud,
What?
and gambling
What?
with investors' money. And caught in the middle of it all, some of the biggest Twitch streamers and YouTubers in the world blatantly scammed out of
Oh my God, we got
millions of
epic
dollars.
music and everything.
But who is responsible for all of this financial destruction? And what can be done to repair the damage? Today we're unraveling this
is
insane story of perhaps
freaking
the biggest
epic,
scam
dude.
in the history of Twitch and YouTube sponsorship.
He had no money, he was cheating, he was a scammer.
This looks too good to be true. ACR not paying out anybody.
Dude, I'm so good with scammers. Slicker paid me back when I lent him money. always got all my payouts from ACR. Hell yeah.
Story of America's Card Room.
That company refused to pay me out?
This story is fascinating and takes many twists and turns. And we're going to get into a lot of different details of some famous people that you've probably heard of. But before we do that, it's important to understand what is at the heart of this. Essentially, many different influencers around the world signed up to promote a poker website. And when it came time to pay the bill, they didn't get paid.
Damn.
Allegedly. You're probably going to hear me say allegedly a lot today. That
Do you have the
poker
pizza in
site that
Detroit?
didn't pay
Nope.
some of these large influencers is known as America's Card Room, or rather ACR. Extremely popular online personalities such as Ludwig, Amaranth, Hikaru, Summit 1G, Alexandra Botez, QT Cinderella, and even members of the Mr. Beast crew have all promoted
Damn.
America's Card Room over the last few years.
They even got Mr.
That might
Beast's
sound like
crew
enough
on
big
this.
names in its own right, but there are actually a lot more large personalities that ACR worked with, including Justin Wong, Soda Poppin', Destiny,
No!
Boxbox, Gotham Chess, Virtual,
Thought we avoided
Extra
one.
Emily, Pay Money Wubby, Lakari, Simply, Tectone, Nico Lol, and Jay Schlatt. That is by all means an impressive list. Can you believe that that's everyone that promoted this website? Well, if you did believe it, you'd be wrong, because there
There's
are many
even more.
This
Oh
list
my
might not
God.
even be half of them. In fact,
Damn.
we found more than 80 creators here that have
Damn.
promoted this poker website. The total number of people promoting it, likely in the hundreds. We've got everything from chess players to variety streamers to speedrunners to many different pro gamers in Counter-Strike, Street Fighter, League of Legends. Every single corner of live streaming has been affected. Actually, I could probably think of some corners that maybe have not been affected. They did put some
Don't know
very
what the-
notable names on board. You will see this on YouTube from time to time where there's some hot new product that everyone is marketing and you basically can't watch a YouTube video without escaping it. Influencers will go to any length to make a quick buck, which is why I'd like to talk to you about Club WPT Gold.
Club W?
The newest poker site in the US market. And if you sign up today using my code Doug, wait, I'm doing the thing now, aren't I? Where was I? But back to ACR, I can only
Wait, what was the
imagine
thing?
how much this cost. I mean, to get some of these people on board, what would it cost for them to promote your gambling platform? You'd have to imagine that number is in the millions. Well, not so
Did he ask
fast,
for anybody?
my friend. Because recently, some of these influencers have come forward and said that they were never paid for their work. This caused a domino effect of drama that spilled out across social media, revealing that, in fact, millions of dollars went unpaid. And we'll get to that. But for now, let's start at the beginning. What is America's Card Room? America's Card Room is an online poker platform that offers real money games. They offer these games to Americans, which is technically illegal, so they operate outside of the United States. I think it's important to mention there
What
are
should I
three
get?
kinds of markets.
I don't remember. This shit was so long ago.
Black markets, gray markets, and just legal markets. Some businesses will operate in an area where they feel they have a strong legal argument to do so. It's untested or perhaps unknown, but they believe that their business is legal and thus they can operate in that entity until challenged otherwise. Then you have black market businesses which are operating illegally and hoping to either not get caught or basically not risk being in the United States. ACR is in that category. In 2011, the United States banned online poker, with the three major platforms all going down and being seized by the US federal government. Since that day, we have not seen widespread US poker until the existence of sweepstakes poker sites. Essentially, a traditional model like America's Card Room is illegal, taking money and gambling with it. But new online poker websites like Club WPT Gold use a sweepstakes model, which is a legal loophole in order to offer poker online. Using this loophole, we can offer millions of dollars in promotions, such as this summer's Gold Rush. That's right, Club WPT Gold is going to have a $1 million free roll at least for people who sign up using... Wait. God damn it, I was doing it again. America's Card Room has existed for some time. In fact, I remember playing on this site over a decade ago. And to their credit, I will say that most players, or all players that I'm aware of, have been paid out their balances when they withdrew from the website. But, and this is a pretty big but, there have been countless issues over the years with different areas of their security, or perhaps the way they have conduct with their ambassadors. And there have been many, many different scandals regarding bots, essentially having computers play on their website to win money from real humans that other people are using. It's important for the website to catch these people to prevent cheating, and it seems like ACR may have not been doing the best job there. The CEO of ACR is Phil Nagy, and he is central to this entire story. He's a lovable goofball who enjoys social media, virtual reality entertainment, and hiding out in Costa Rica. Influencer marketing is a major part of Phil Nagy's strategy. In fact, in 2024 alone, he says he paid over $30 million.
Oh wait, is this the guy? Was this my contact? It might have been him.
Content creators.
Over the period of a year, what I paid 2 influencers.
Are you able to divulge that amount?
Over $30 million.
$30 million in 1 year alone paid out to influencers for a poker company. That is a crazy high number.
That's crazy.
This number's so high that some people may be questioning their contracts with their own poker websites they represent on their YouTube videos. But anyway, that number, 30 million, ends up being pretty interesting. And that's because it's about to come up again later. XQC.
Dude, I know
one
him.
of the biggest streamers in the world, says that he turned down a deal from ACR to stream just 4 hours for $1 million.
I don't know if you saw the other site that all the other streamers who were also at the forefront of anti-gambling were all getting sponsorships by. That site ended up scamming people.
Damn.
The one that we didn't take it.
Yeah.
The one that declined. Oh my god. I told everybody in my agents, everybody that knew about the deal. I said it. This looks too good to be true. I wouldn't do it, right? And they ended up not paying out anybody. ACR, America's Card Room. They ended up.
Wait, when were the dates for this? I did so many ACR deals. I always got paid out, and I feel like everybody I know always got paid out too. Was this happening? Were some people not?
Paying out nobody for all the sponsorships. People.
How much were the deals? How much were they?
It was gonna be like two small stream segments. It was $1 million. For like, I don't remember, like 4 hours.
Imagine being offered $1 million for 4 hours.
I didn't get paid that
and
much.
saying no. That means you must have a real
feel like a
reason not
loser.
to. And maybe XQC was just ahead of the curve when it came to ACR. You might be starting to piece together different parts of this story. It seems like ACR might not be the most reputable company, and creators didn't get paid for millions of dollars. But here's where things start to get a little bit messy, because Phil Nagy worked with a middleman to sponsor these creators, and it's unclear which one of these two men is ultimately at fault. Scott Ball is the founder of Endgame Talent, a talent management agency. The partnership between ACR and Endgame Talent appeared to begin in 2021, and it did seem like things were going smoothly from an outside perspective. The way that it seemed to work was that ACR would pay Scott, and Scott would recruit the influencers in order for them to promote ACR. I'm going to be particularly careful with my words as we enter this section. Back in 2016, Scott Ball worked over at Twitch, where he spearheaded poker as a category for viewership. I'm actually a little bit involved here at this point because I did know Scott. I actually went to Seattle for an event that was an Amazon Twitch hosted event where it was poker players versus Hearthstone players. And I do have to say, many people came to me with their distaste for Scott. He would frequently say bad things about other people to other people. For example, he would say something about some big poker streamer to me, and then to some other big poker streamer would say bad things about me. And I had these conversations with many other influencers who were extremely unhappy with Scott Ball's involvement. Somehow now, just a couple of years later after leaving Twitch, Scott Ball was suddenly playing very high stakes poker. In fact, it seemed like he was a poker professional. In 2021, he was hit with some serious allegations of cheating and embezzlement by poker professional Mike Matusow.
Mr. Criminal fucking thief, scummy fuck Scott Ball. Don't everybody invest with this guy. He's a scammer. He's a fucking piece of shit. I knew what he was. I could see right through it. And he ended up like getting like Phil's friends to invest like $900K, and he took the whole money and blew it all gambling. Everything I said he was doing. I said he was ghosting people in the game. I said he had no money. I said he was cheating. I said he was a scammer, and everyone came to fruition. He admitted to cheating the poker game.
Damn.
Admitted to it.
Damn.
Okay. So we know he cheated the poker game for around $800,000. Can you imagine somebody playing three-way with the guy who's making all your money in your company dead drunk and beating him out of 270? The guy wakes up, Phil Nagy, who the head of ACR, wakes up the next day, and the guy says, "Hey, you lost $270,000." He was drunk and doesn't remember, and he takes advantage of it. What kind of scumbag does that?
Some very strong allegations here from Mike the Mouth Matusow. But at this point, Phil Nagy, the ACR CEO, stepped in to talk about his experience with Scott. They were good friends and business partners, and Nagy cleared Scott of any wrongdoing in their poker match. Around this time, Scott tweeted a strange video from Phil Hellmuth.
Scott Ball did not steal millions of dollars from me, so I'm kind of surprised that accusation has been leveled.
Well, if you didn't steal from me.
Scott's done a good job as far as being CEO of Endgame, and keep crushing.
I'll note that this is a bit funny that it's posted on Scott Ball's account, yet it is of Phil Hellmuth. Why would Phil not just post this on his own account? We can all just wonder why. Phil Hellmuth is actually also listed as an advisor and investor in Endgame Talent, but I wouldn't necessarily read too much into this because Phil is involved in a million companies. Some people just don't know when to stop. They keep working for company after company after company, and before you know it, your name is Doug. I do want to know, while I had some serious issues with Scott a few years back, I ended up talking with him a little bit, and he, as far as I recall, apologized for some of the way he behaved back in the day, and he did come to Lodge Card Club, my card room, and play versus me in a high-stakes heads-up match. So I don't know what Scott is like today, but I can say I've had, generally speaking, a better experience with him lately than I did at the time at Twitch Poker. However, it is still suspicious to me the way that he essentially left Twitch Poker and then came back into the world of poker playing extremely high stakes. In 2024, a viewer on Ludwig's stream asked him which sponsor he most regretted working with. His answer? ACR.
The sponsor that I regret the most is a poker company I used to work with called American Card Room. I was only sponsored to play poker. They did have a casino, but I never got sponsored to play the casino, only the poker. Now, you might think I regret it because I was promoting gambling or something. I didn't give a fuck about that. I think poker is a dope game. I think anyone should be allowed to play poker if they're of age and have enough funds and money and understand the game, of course. So I actually don't have a problem with that at all. The reason I regret it is because that company refused to pay me out.
Can we see one of your talking cards, and can you show us how you format them? Wait, what?
And the money that I earned playing poker, because I won a bunch of tournaments, I would then gamble on their site, and it was so fucking hard to pull the money out. And so if it's hard for me, it means it's hard for the other people who I was promoting it to play poker. And so I stopped working with them because I think they're kind of a dog shit site. That's my one probably regret for companies.
It just so happened, as luck would have it, that my video editor Thomas was watching the stream when he said this. Thomas posted the clip to Twitter, and the floodgates opened. Well-known chess streamer Alexandra Botez responded that she also got stiffed by ACR and claimed that dozens of other creators were in the same boat. Amaranth, another well-known famous Twitch streamer with millions of followers, chimed in to say they also got me haven't been paid a hefty sum for playing poker on their site per contract, ... Around this same time, streamer Pay Money Wubby was telling his Reddit community a similar story. If this is reference to the money I was receiving for my poker sponsorship, I have yet to receive any money, and this is something being litigated currently. Ooh, we have litigation
That's why she had
now.
to fake the robbery?
A lawsuit
True.
over the money that was failed to pay, allegedly. I must also note the irony to not pay money to Pay Money Wubby. Gotham Chess, one of the
Epic.
largest chess YouTubers, seems to have been one of the victims as well, but he has since deleted his tweet on the matter. He must be extremely thankful he deleted that tweet, because otherwise he'd be getting covered in this story on YouTube. Wait, entering the next chapter now of this saga, we move
Also
into the
epic.
lawsuit. That's right, lawyers are now getting involved, probably in multiple places. A different talent agency, this one called Loaded LLC, was suing Scott Ball and Endgame Talent for $664,000 in damages. Once again, the issue was influencers promoting ACR and not getting paid. The lawsuit claims that Endgame Talent agreed to pay $664,000 for ACR promotions from Lyric, Summit 1G, ACU, DAF, Sure4, Kassen, Slater Kodish, Joe Bartolozzi, and Jojo That Mofo. All of these streamers held up their end of the deal and did 6 hours each of promotions, as these documents allege, from what I understand. We've got a lot of people now getting involved, but it would appear that sometimes even the middlemen need a middleman. The streamers did their promotions between March 2023 and May 2023, with payments due in July and August 2023. Endgame Talent never paid for any of it, as it would appear. Scott Ball appeared to never respond to these allegations, and Loaded won on a default judgment. Endgame Talent was ordered to pay $718,000, essentially the $664,000 plus fees and interest. Scott claims that this happened because his lawyers screwed up. In a quote here from a Poker News article, Ball does not dispute the judgment exists, but claimed it was awarded due to an oversight by his lawyer, who failed to respond on time. In short, my attorneys are handling that and trying to get the default lifted so we can go back to offering a reasonable settlement to pave the road and come to terms that way. That was a mistake on my attorney's part. Attorneys, right? You can't live with them. And what's my next segment? Also, in a motion from Loaded Lawsuit, we can see Scott saying, when I asked Mr. Gangitano, that looks like a made-up name. When I asked Mr. Gangitano how the default was entered and whether he had failed to respond to something, Mr. Gangitano said, yeah, there is no answer on file, which is my fault, and I have no idea how that happened. An advanced legal maneuvering known as, dude, I forgot. So why did Endgame Talent not appear to pay these streamers? Scott says it's because ACR was supposed to pay them, and they breached their contract. In fact, Scott says they scammed him for $30 million. ACR agreed to pay Endgame Talent $3.3 million per month over a period of 9 months, totaling $29.7 million. Scott's job would be to enlist more and even bigger names to promote the poker site. Right off the bat, things got off to a shaky start. The following is what happened to Scott. ACR's chief marketing officer asked if they could break up the first payment into weekly installments and then pause the deal for 2 months. Scott agreed, and over the next 3 weeks, the $3.3 million was paid. These payments were made in Bitcoin. ACR claimed that they were running low on BTC and needed to slow down their tournament prize pools. After the 2-month pause, ACR still wasn't paying and were ghosting for weeks and sometimes months. Eventually, the CMO said he was still waiting on Nagy and that all payments were on hold. ACR...
Okay, so at the end of the day, what is this? Just a bunch of streamers got scammed, basically? Or...
never made another to pay himself.
Who cares?
Somebody here is public, said not paid out for their work done at America's Card Room. $10 million not paid out, and now we potentially owed to people not paid out for their work done at America's Card Room. $10 million not paid out, and now we have these gigantic influencers with large fan bases that might not trust the poker industry at all. We need these kinds of people to help be the voice that gets new players into the game. Poker is always trying to grow, bigger tournaments, bigger events, influencer streams. And are these people really going to join on in if they think they might just get scammed again? Luckily for poker, we do have good actors in the space like World Poker Tour, a well-known brand that has been around for many years, who has now launched their online US-facing poker site, Club WPT Gold. And
wait, do they have real money here?
if you sign up today with code Doug, you can get in on the action on Gold Rush. This summer, we are doing a $1 million free roll, and we're giving away millions of dollars at the if you win a ticket and a select event. So make sure to sign up today with code Doug so you don't miss out on the action. As a note, I am being paid by Club WPT Gold to promote this platform. Or rather, I suppose I'm eventually going to get paid. They haven't paid me yet, but...
Good one. Okay. I'm going on a date. Cinco de Mayo. Celebrate and have fun. Be careful. I love you very much. We'll be back tomorrow. Don't die. Oh, go watch H3H3. Yeah.